Chapter 801, Captured Alive I. The two cultivators attacked together. Li Zijai formed a spell with one hand and wielded his sword with the other, leaping out of their encirclement and scattering patches of golden-red rainbow lights. Sweat appeared on his forehead as he finally found the chance to properly examine his opponents. One of them had a dignified and sturdy appearance. He was neatly dressed and held a dark purple-black jar densely covered with intricate white patterns. His eyes were wide, filled with uncertainty. The other man had a fierce and greedy look. He was taller than his companion and wore a black robe. Layers of white mist continuously drifted from him, coiling around him like agile serpents. When he saw Li Zijai easily escaping their encirclement, the devil cultivator holding the jar transmitted a hasty message using divine sense. Fellow Taoist Qiu. This person is difficult to deal with. You're familiar with the local situation. Do you know anything about him? The ears of the burly devil cultivator stepping on the white mist twitched. His aggressive gaze swept over Li Zijai's robe without hiding his intentions, and he replied darkly, Brother Ji. Judging from his appearance, he's probably from the Azure Pond sect. He has many treasures, and it seems he's injured. You and I let's seize this opportunity and rob him. Devil Cultivator Ji nodded slowly. Both of them were devil cultivators summoned from the region of Su State. They were not trusted retainers of the Murong family, so they had always intended to make a significant profit. When they saw Li Zijai in poor condition, their greed immediately started to rear its head. Li Zijai calmly regulated his breath and transmitted a mana message. Li Quantao and Yu Yue had already suppressed their devil cultivator opponents and had spare attention to observe him, relieving him greatly. But the two devil cultivators before him allowed no openings. Devil Cultivator Ji finally made the decision to throw out his purple-black jar. A burst of gray smoke emerged from it and was swept forward by the wind toward Li Zijai. Rainbow light shone from Li Zijai's hand as he activated his defensive spell, Dawn Wind Stabilizer. Two arcs of rainbow light rippled outward like waves on water. The heavenly glow Dao lineage wasn't known for defense, and Li Zijai's technique was already one of the rare respectable defensive arts in the Dawn Dew Gathering Technique manual. His injuries made his spell appear dimmer than usual. It should have dispersed the enemy's attack outright, but now it merely pushed back the gray smoke, temporarily restraining the opponent's momentum. Li Zijai was inwardly startled, his heart sinking. These two aren't ordinary devil cultivators. But Devil Cultivator Qiu had already lunged forth on white mist and instantly appeared before him. He combined two clumps of white mist in his hand and forcibly ripped through the rippling rainbow light. The white mist sizzled on contact with mana. It was seemingly designed to neutralize enemy spells, as it instantly turned mana into ashes. The Dawn Wind Stabilizer only briefly delayed him as his hand shot directly toward Li Zijai's chest. Li Quantao, who was observing the situation from the side, immediately sensed something was wrong. His heart skipped a beat as he shouted, Senior Yu. His shout rang out like thunder. Yu Yue activated his immortal foundation to the fullest, shaking out two purple-red flames from his sleeves that intercepted the devil cultivator facing Li Quantao. A massive purple-red cauldron hurtled through the air, instantly forcing the two devil cultivators into disarray. Li Quantao tapped his chest and spat out a radiant pearl. The pearl released dazzling streams of light, dispersing the demonic clouds into a few small dark patches. Clear droplets rose from beneath the pearl and merged into the clouds. Water wall pearl. Clang. Cultivator Qiu's attention suddenly shifted away from Li Zijai, eyes widening in surprise. Devil Cultivator Ji similarly lost his composure, excitement and greed surfacing on his face as he cried out, what a powerful Dharma artifact. Could it be an ancient relic, a water mansion ancient Dharma artifact? The water wall pearl's power was astonishing as it nearly dispersed the spirit winds under their feet. The bright and lustrous white pearl hovered silently in the air. It was clearly extraordinary. Rather than fear, the two devil cultivators felt joy, as their attention was immediately captured by the artifact. As both devil cultivators momentarily froze, Li Zijai felt the pressure ease. Li Quantao stepped forward, gripping the artifact and shouting loudly, Brother Zhai, I'm here to help you. Yet, at that moment, both devil cultivators erupted in sudden fury. Devil Cultivator Qiu's black robes billowed violently as white mist uncontrollably surged from his 7 orifices along with bursts of blood. The mist spiraled like a storm across his shoulders and back around his face. At the same time, Devil Cultivator Ji bit off the tip of his tongue, spitting out a mouthful of blood. The jar in his hand flashed with crimson light, expanding several times in size. Gray smoke burst forth like competing snakes racing forward. So decisive, Northern Devil Cultivators. Both Devil Cultivators simultaneously used techniques that burned their own lifeblood and vitality without hesitation. Gray and white mist swept forward together, startling Li Quantao greatly. Focused entirely on aiding Li Zijai, Li Quantao hadn't anticipated their sudden and nearly suicidal attack. He hastily threw out the water wall pearl to intercept the incoming mists. Li Zijai naturally wouldn't stand idle. Gathering his mana, he drew his sword swiftly, a brilliant sword light erupting from its sheath, aimed sharply at Devil Cultivator Q's back. A loud explosion echoed. The shattered waves of gray and white mist caused intense pain in Li Zijai's eyes, causing tears to stream down his face. His sword seemed to have struck something, but Devil Cultivator Q had vanished into the white mist. A pale Li Quantao staggered back several steps. The water wall pearl had saved his life again, absorbing nearly 60% of their combined attack. The pearl continued hovering, still as radiant as ever. But the strength belonged entirely to the artifact, not Li Quantao himself. Despite the pearl absorbing most of the damage, Li Quantao had clearly suffered significantly from the strike. So he quickly recalled the pearl. Li Zijai moved swiftly to his side with a flash of golden cloud, spreading a sleeveful of heavenly glow. He noticed Devil Cultivator Q's astonished expression, blood still visible on his cheeks due to excessive mana consumption. Devil Cultivator Q questioned suspiciously, the Li family of Lijiang. Li Zijai was uncertain how Q recognized him, but judging by the mention of the Li family of Lijiang, it likely concerned events from years past. His expression grew solemn, but he remained silent. Devil Cultivator G, disappointed in Q's hesitation, immediately started to curse. Q Jai, you damned idiot. Why hesitate at this critical time? Hurry up and seize that artifact. There will be nothing left for us when others gather. Q Jai glared darkly at him, secretly harboring distrustful thoughts. There's only one artifact. How could the two of us share it? I've fought with this family before. They're strong. I also heard they're a sword immortal clan. They might have hidden trump cards. I should have tricked old G into blocking those talisman swords. Better if he dies without a corpse so I can naturally take the artifact. It's a perfect outcome. But since things remain unsettled, I must first kill one person with full force. Sinister and terrifying white mist surged violently in his hands as he recklessly fueled them with his vitality. Chapter 802, Captured Alive II. Even as he observed the pair closely, Li Zijai noticed dozens of immortal lights approaching from the south. His heart quickened slightly. There are many immortals that are certainly coming. Ant might not leave Mount Yan Pass, but perhaps my own family, or even the Yang family, will arrive. The heavenly glow in his hand shifted slightly as he thought. It didn't attack the two cultivators, but instead soared upward through layers of clouds toward the dozens of approaching immortal lights. However, this brief delay caused Li Quantao to instantly spat out blood. His strength was modest, since he was only at the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm. He relied entirely on the ancient Dharma artifact in his possession. Though the water wall pearl could block most attacks due to its indestructible nature, the two devil cultivators before him were cunning. Their increasingly tricky spells caused Li Quantao to repeatedly cough up. Now Li Quantao didn't even have the mental capacity to pay attention to Li Zijai's actions. His spirit sank further as the foreboding sense of impending death gradually overcame him. The water wall pearl had enabled Lian Cheng, at the early Foundation establishment realm, to evenly battle Kai Wei, a direct descendant of an immortal sect at the late Foundation establishment realm. Yet in Li Quantao's hands, it was merely a defensive artifact. This disparity in mastery filled Li Quantao with bitterness. I truly fall short of my father in every aspect. Li Zijai saw no one arriving to assist them, so he reactivated his mana to face the enemy. But it only took a few exchanges for Li Quantao to be badly injured, forcing Li Zijai to look toward Yu Yuwei for help. However, his heart sank. Yu Yuwei had initially been fighting two alone, but he now faced yet another devil cultivator. The elderly man was overwhelmed and unable to offer assistance. His face darkened, but he then heard Li Quantao's faint, thread-like voice in his ear, "Brother Zhai, the Yu family can't be trusted. Yu Yuwei covets my artifact, so he'll deliberately watch passively. He won't help." Li Quantao had always been strongly hostile toward the Yu family. Li Zijai could only silently sigh, drawing his sword again as he stood protectively in front of Li Quantao as the two devil cultivators launched another assault on them. Go! Li Zijai judged that, given his talisman seeds and talisman chi, he could endure longer than Li Quantao. If they fled, Yu Yuwei would be forced to act, willing or not. He transmitted using divine sense, "I'll hold the artifact and escape." Heavenly Glow excels in escape arts, so these two devil cultivators likely won't catch me. Boom! But before he finished speaking, the gray and white mist hurriedly withdrew like frightened rabbits. The surrounding demonic energy scattered completely as a deafening rumble, and dazzling white light stunned everyone present. Li Zijai immediately activated his perception art, clearly seeing Qiu Jai's pale face convulsing violently. A silver-white spear tip pierced through Qiu Jai's chest, forcing trails of black smoke into the air. A burst of purple lightning exploded from dark clouds, causing Qiu Jai to scream. Devil Cultivator Ji stared in shock. His scalp tingled and his legs weakened. When he heard a thunderclap, he retreated dozens of feet in panic. Though briefly weakened by lightning, Qiu Jai was extraordinary. He immediately transformed into white mist and reformed into a skull-like head. Unable to flee, he threw himself toward Li Quantao. Boom! The skull-like mist was extremely fast, but the crystalline purple light moved faster, instantly intercepting it. Li Quantao paled, not yet reacting fully, as the purple light transformed into a female cultivator in an azure-purple feathered robe who landed gracefully before Li Zijai. Her eyes were a hazy purple, and she held a silver spear. Li Qinghong coldly stared at the white skull, muttering, "Qiu Jai." She lifted Qiu Jai by the neck, leaving everyone utterly astonished. Even Yu Yue was shocked. His devil cultivator opponents exchanged quick glances before immediately fleeing. Qiu Jai, having been shattered by the lightning, took 2 full seconds to reform half his body in the air. His upper torso hung helplessly in the woman's grasp, his expression filled with extreme terror. His trembling lips appeared to be muttering pleas for mercy. The purple brilliance in the almond-shaped eyes of the woman seemed sharp enough to pierce right through him. Hatred gradually surfaced in her gaze, filling Qiu Jai with dread. It's her, that female cultivator from the Li family. So it's already come to this. If I'd known she hated me so deeply, I would have killed one of her relatives back at the market. Despite being shielded by thunder, it wasn't easy for Li Qinghong's physical body to pierce through the corrosive demonic qi. Bright crimson blood trickled down her wrist, yet she only felt satisfaction in her vengeance. Qiu Jai, eyes filled with blurry purple lightning, could only cry out in terror, "Milady, you are boom." Purple lightning instantly crashed down on him. Qiu Jai screamed in agony as a delicate hand closed tightly around the white mist of his body. Li Qinghong's red lips parted slightly as she said coldly, "Old bastard, after so many years, I've finally caught you." Her melodious voice echoed through the air. Although this particular corner of the battlefield only had few devil and immortal cultivators, everyone present shuddered. Qiu Jai's face was a mask of despair as he thought, how could it be this sudden? How could she be this ruthless? He didn't believe himself entirely helpless against Li Qinghong, but the unexpected ambush and Li Qinghong's resolute killing intent had resulted in his current miserable state. Nearby, Devil Cultivator Ji was frightened nearly to death. Though Qiu Jai's strength was slightly inferior to his, he'd lost all ability to resist so quickly because of the ambush. Which Devil Cultivator wouldn't fear a woman bathed in lightning like this? He desperately tried fleeing silently with all his might, but at that moment, the Heavenly Glow Cultivator and the man wielding the Water Mansion artifact arrogantly took advantage and eagerly blocked his escape. One moved swiftly, always appearing ahead of him. The other was even more troublesome as he used the Water Mansion artifact to firmly suppress his escaping light. But what truly chilled Devil Cultivator G's heart was that the female cultivator, with her silver spear and feathered robe surrounded by purple lightning, had long locked onto him with her lightning-infused spiritual sense. She seemed to be casually standing there, but whenever her almond-shaped eyes glanced over at him, he knew any sign of fleeing would invite instant annihilation by lightning. Damn that fool Qiu Jai. Clearly, he had deep ties with this family, yet he kept scheming and hiding the truth from me completely. Now look at what's happened. My life is finished. Chapter 803, Qi Wang's Profound Heaven-Hearing Eye. Li Qinghong's entire body crackled with lightning. Energy surged ceaselessly within her thunderpool, and the vast sky-fierce sparrow within her Qi Sea shone brightly, releasing streams of red and violet energy that poured into her immortal foundation. She had originally battled alongside fellow cultivators against devil cultivators, penetrating deep into enemy territory. When she had engaged a Murong family guest cultivator, she had caught sight of rainbow lights out of the corner of her eye. Having received Li Zijai's letter earlier, Li Qinghong knew he'd taken 3 autumn convergence pills and had yet to fully recover. Thus, she was filled with anxiety upon spotting the rainbow light, but she had been faced with a stubborn opponent, so she quickly made a decisive choice. She abruptly changed tactics, risking her life to inflict serious injuries and forcing her enemy to flee in a streak of bloody light. She then activated the cyan sparrow plume on her body, turning into a stream of cyan plume radiance as she raced through lightning. The cyan plume streamlight was the natural ability of the Wanglin sect feathered robe. Combined with her innate lightning speed, she instantly caught the 2 cultivators completely off guard. Qiu Jai. Years ago, during the calamity at the Xiao family market, Qiu Jai had severely wounded Li Xuangshuan, greatly damaging his vitality. He also killed Li Qinghong's younger brother, Li Yuanyan, the sole heir of Li Xuanling, leaving not even his corpse behind. Later, he ambushed the Li family again, killing Tian Yaodao, Li Qinghong's uncle. Although Li Qinghong rarely spoke of it, her hatred had never diminished. Each time she revisited the memory, it felt like she might never have the chance for revenge despite how vast the world was. And yet you dare harm my family again. Old grudges and new hatred swirled within her. Violet light erupted from Li Qinghong, and dense lightning energy poured into her palm, slowly melting Qiu Jai's head. The devil cultivator screamed in agony as Li Qinghong said venomously, "You used devil winds to dissolve my brother's flesh back then. Now taste your own medicine." Blinding white lightning burst forth, and Qiu Jai's figure dissolved completely amid the struggling white mist. Lightning was unrivaled at purging evil, and this single strike inflicted upon him the pain of countless lightning bolts, completely annihilating his body and soul. If they were bound and struck repeatedly by lightning until both body and soul dispersed, even a Buddhist cultivator famed for reincarnation would surely perish. Even a true monarch would find it impossible to resurrect him now. If circumstances were different and I didn't need to conserve energy, I'd have surely tortured him longer to satisfy my revenge, thought Li Qinghong. The vast sky-fierce sparrow within her stirred restlessly after killing Qiu Jai. Her violet and cyan radiance came about due to the resonance between her lightning and the cyan sparrow plume. Now that lightning had intensified, the purple glow became even more pronounced. She glanced back once before transforming into violet cyan light again, instantly vanishing from her original spot, leaving echoes of thunder reverberating among the clouds. Devil Cultivator Ji had fled several kilometers before the blood pills beneath his skin finally burst, gradually restoring his speed. He'd finally managed to escape from the strange suppression of the Water Mansion Dharma artifact, allowing his heart to slowly calm. She's probably still busy torturing Qiu Jai. Yet the instant this thought crossed his mind, his hair stood on end, and sharp, burning pain flared up in his back. Hastily turning around and activating his artifact, he cried in terror, "Fellow Taoists, spare me, spare me. I have nothing to do with that man. Don't ruin my century-long cultivation." Boom. The only reply he received was from the Dharma artifact in the feather-robed female cultivator's hand. A purple Dharma bottle soared into the sky, unleashing several bolts of lightning that rammed into his demonic jar. Ag. Since the artifact was spiritually linked to him, Devil Cultivator Ji immediately spat out blood. His purple-black jar emitted bursts of dark smoke, as he lost at least 5 years of nurturing from the lightning's impact. Li Qinghong's recent acquisition of the feathered robe had significantly elevated her combat strength. Empowered further by Talisman Qi, lightning flickered around her. She left no room for him to escape as her spear thrust toward his chest, enveloped in lightning. Boom! Thunder roared again, and Li Zijai watched the flickering purple radiance within the clouds. He suddenly felt short of breath as relief flooded through him. Li Quanto asked blankly, "Is that Senior Qinghong?" "It's Aunt," replied Li Zijai. Li Quanto smiled faintly, shaking his head as he spoke. "Thunder arts truly excel at purging demons. Senior Qinghong's strength is impressive. I greatly admire her." Li Zijai felt similarly astonished. Qiu Jai was not weak. He had surpassed many Foundation Establishment realm cultivators from prominent families. Even if Li Zijai had not been severely injured, he could only guarantee defeating Qiu Jai. Killing him would be difficult. Yet Li Qinghong, empowered by Thunder Arts, had killed him within a few moves. Li Zijai felt both joy and concern. Firstly, Aunt's strength has clearly grown. Secondly, I fear she's injured and was forced to activate the vast Sky-Fierce Sparrow. The vast Sky-Fierce Sparrow was a talisman Qi specialized in combat. Li Zijai had no doubt Devil Cultivator Ji would fail to escape, yet he remained worried about Li Qinghong's injury. After briefly adjusting their breathing, Yu Yue approached them. Though Li Quanto held grudges against him, he greeted Yu Yue politely. Li Zijai hid his doubts, silently thinking, how injured is Yu Yue really? He was formidable against Chuoba Changyuan earlier, but something seemed off just now. The three devil cultivators battling Yu Yue weren't like Qiu Jai or Ji. They were just ordinary Foundation Establishment realm devil cultivators spawned from blood scripts. They shouldn't have troubled him so severely. Li Qinghong's recent lightning strike instantly frightened away many devils, causing Li Zijai to question the true strength of those three devil cultivators. His mood darkened further. Since they were in poor condition, they dared not linger. They rode swiftly on the wind and followed the direction of the purple light for dozens of kilometers. Li Zijai's heart chilled when he sensed several devilish lights pursuing him. The difference in numbers is too great. We've traveled dozens of kilometers and have only seen demonic chi and no immortal lights. Our cultivators aren't weak. It shouldn't be like this. It seems enemy reinforcements have arrived. After pausing briefly, they saw the purple light returning. Li Qinghong appeared solemnly, holding a cracked demonic jar in one hand, while the other refined a black orb with intense purple lightning. Blood stained the corner of her lips, and she finally relaxed upon seeing them. Li Qinghong was similarly aware of the dire situation. Tang Shedu and Li Xunfeng had led teams from the east and south, but the eastern front had suffered severe casualties and was on the verge of collapse. After flying dozens of kilometers without seeing any allies, she refused to linger, preferring injury over delay. She was determined to quickly kill the enemy before her. She paused briefly, then said softly, "Let's retreat southward first. There are fewer devil cultivators there." The three nodded in agreement. Yu Yue appeared calm and composed, revealing nothing unusual. Before anyone else could speak, a booming sound echoed in the sky alongside flickering golden lights, and a harsh, demonic voice shouted, "Tang Shedu." The droning roar reverberated continuously. Yu Yue glanced around cautiously, noticing several clouds of demonic chi slowly converging around them. The elderly cultivator's face looked uncertain as a sense of unease rose within him. How come there are so many devil cultivators here? Where are the reinforcements? Before he could voice his doubt, another overwhelming demonic voice echoed fiercely, filled with murderous intent. The Qi Wang's profound heaven hearing has sounded. He already harbors suspicion. Eliminate him immediately. Chapter 804, Qi Wang's profound heaven hearing, II. Buzz, Li Xuanfeng drew his bow once again, the golden bowstring filled with razor-sharp brilliance. Narrowing his eyes slightly, he observed Murong En of the Murong family clutching his stomach in the distance as a vast cloud of black qi billowed around him. The Murong family possessed many Dao lineages, and Murong En's cultivation differed distinctly from Murong Wu's. Instead, he resembled the Maha Murong Zia, his body like assembled mud, dispersing and reforming at will. No one knew just how many things his stomach contained. Various scattered Dharma artifacts occasionally flew out along with the black qi, sometimes accompanied by black clouds that transformed into human-shaped shadows. He doesn't seem like a devil cultivator, rather, he resembles a master monk. Buzz, the golden arrows at Li Xuanfeng's waist vibrated restlessly. Most of them shone brilliantly in gold and were engraved with glowing white mystical patterns. Only one arrow remained quiet, a slender and elegant piece tinged in red and gold hues. This red-gold profound arrow had been refined using 6 Ding merging fire within a grotto heaven, and later incorporated by the Purple Mansion Realm spirit artifact, Zhai Ji Ring. It had been unintentionally catalyzed during a clash between 2 Foundation Establishment Realm elites and had become exceptionally formidable. As a hidden trump card, it wouldn't be casually used, so Li Xuanfeng drew only a regular golden arrow. The arrow's mystical patterns slowly gained 2 layers of golden radiance, one layer sharp and swift, the other darker and heavier. Intertwining golden lights hummed as they fused at the arrow tip, causing the devil cultivator before him to noticeably slow down. Damn it. Faced with the dazzling golden brilliance, Murong En felt a sharp pain between his eyebrows once again. Hatred surged within his chest, choking him with rage as he urgently circulated his mana again. No wonder Murong Wu died. This man's archery is astonishing. His artifacts and spiritual robe are both powerful. Qi Wang's profound heaven hearing described him as born with immense physical strength and had his aperture in his palm. Truly rare indeed. Despite his hatred, Murong En had to acknowledge his opponent's strength. The man appeared to have consumed some pills or used a secret technique. His arrows contained dual-layered mana, one extremely sharp, the other corrosive, making them exceptionally difficult to counter. The sense of danger between his eyebrows grew increasingly intense, and his heart suddenly went cold. A single thought flashed through his mind: he's aiming for my left arm. Instantly, his left arm dispersed into black mist, narrowly avoiding the golden light that pierced past him and left a golden trail several kilometers behind him. Murong En cried out in pain, his expression gloomy, but he felt relief and resentment. He thought, if the master hadn't given me the spirit artifact Qi Wang's profound heaven hearing to foresee the target of his profound arrow. Damn it, just wait a bit longer. Although Murong En's body could reform at will, Li Xuanfeng's golden arrows weren't easy to evade. Whenever they struck him, Murong En screamed in agony, the golden astral qi fiercely slicing away chunks of demonic qi. Though Li Xuanfeng steadily forced the devil cultivator back, his heart remained heavy with doubt. His gray eyes narrowed as he stared intensely, anxiety gripping him. There should have been 2 devil cultivators here. Where's the other one? Li Xuanfeng felt something off. They had exchanged nearly 100 blows. Murong En's demonic body was mostly shattered, and yet despite his pitiful cries, he had no intention of retreating. What is he waiting for? Thought Murong En. Li Xuanfeng's eyes narrowed in suspicion, and he cast a cold glance at Tang Shedu. Had this man not constantly guarded against him, hesitating and holding back from fully confronting the devil cultivator opposite them, how could this demon still be standing? Master monks were naturally adept at manipulating others' minds. Murong En had easily caught on to Tang Shedu's hesitation and cautiousness, so he deliberately avoided fully attacking Tang Shedu, instead constantly targeting Li Xuanfeng, wary of his spiritual arrows. Li Xuanfeng glanced grimly at the cultivators amidst the fog. His subordinates were faring slightly better. Lin Shao possessed decent strength, and Zhuang Cheng had already slain their opponent with his sharp talisman sword. King Heng and Wushao had each held back 3 devil cultivators. Lingu Laniang was similarly exceptional as she nearly dissolved the enemy's demonic body. They'd lost only 1 cultivator, as even Bai Yinzi fought fiercely. King Heng went toward Tang Shedu's side. Li Xuanfeng looked toward the distant battlefield, taking in the falling immortal lights and raging demonic qi. Ominous premonitions filled his mind. Though he had the advantage here, Tang Shedu's forces had already collapsed. There were scarcely any immortal lights left amid the rampant demonic clouds. What a reckless arrangement. I wonder how Zijai is faring. King Heng must have gone to aid him. muttered Li Xuanfeng. Li Xuanfeng slowly drew his golden bow back once more, his eyes growing dark with suspicion. His naturally fierce expression, coupled with the menacing glint in his gray eyes, became even more intimidating. Something's wrong, very wrong. His heart felt like a stone slowly sinking into a lake. Golden light silently rose from his arms as a terrifying suspicion formed in his mind. Tang Shedu. Why had Tang Shedu's forces collapsed so swiftly and completely? Was he truly holding back solely out of wariness toward him, even in such a critical mission? Tang Shedu was renowned as the wielder of the Changshan halberd. Even when he was restrained, he should have been formidable. Yet his fighting was sluggish, as if he weren't truly there at all. Li Xuanfeng's eyelids fell as a chilling thought formed in his mind. It was one so shocking that it could shake every cultivator and nearly break Mount Yan Pass. Tang Shedu is afraid. He fears Tu Longjian. He fears. His golden bow froze momentarily in midair as streams of light emerged across his body. Opposite him, Murong'en's demonic aura and bloody radiance suddenly stalled. A crisp ringing sound echoed from his chest, and the devil cultivator erupted into a deafening roar. Tang Shedu. Tang Shedu, clang. A piercing mana whistle resonated as a flash of golden white emerged from endless darkness. It shook countless mulberry leaves from trees, whipping flesh and bones from tombs into the sky, only to have them rain down again. A long-prepared platinum halberd tore through thick layers of clouds. Its golden brilliance, akin to the first rays of dawn dispelling evil, surged forward like a golden pill bursting from endless mist, stabbing fiercely forward. The halberd churned the wind and clouds, manifesting 12 smaller platinum branches. Powerful mana surged along the weapon, its aura elegant and smooth, reflecting the accumulated might of countless years. Golden light climbed upward, illuminating pale-colored soft armor and sturdy arms, and finally revealing Tang Shedu's calm yet ruthless face. His slender fingers were tightly wrapped around the halberd's white handle. The halberd was pointed straight at Li Xuanfeng. This strike had been gathering strength for who knows how long. It had emerged like silent golden lightning slicing through the night, abrupt and sharp, even quicker than Murong'en's roaring voice. Only when the halberd was already thrusting forward did the rolling demonic voice finally resound clearly. The Qi Wang's profound heaven hearing has sounded. He already harbors suspicion. Eliminate him immediately. Chapter 805, Turning Point I. Tang Shedu thrust his halberd forward, a hazy golden light flashing in midair as dark clouds rolled back and forth. The halberd was reflected in Li Xuanfeng's pupils, yet his heart instead calmed. So it really was you. All doubts had been dispelled. The reason why Tang Shedu's forces had been wiped out so quickly must be because he had revealed all their arrangements, perhaps even what Dharma artifacts or immortal foundations they possessed. The devil cultivators only needed to follow the plan and kill them in order. Quick to defect, weren't you? Tu Longjian broke through to Purple Mansion first, and Tang Shedu defected to the northern side right after. The man must have received a promise from some devil or Buddhist cultivator. He truly was resolute and ruthless. Even now, he had a calm, composed expression, as though everything were under control. Li Xuanfeng's gaze was cold as a spark of golden light lit up on his chest and climbed up to his neck. It slowly transformed into a white suit of armor as it reached his jawline. Radiance burst forth as the light spread from his chest to his limbs, finally tracing a ring of gold behind him. It was the heavenly gilded helm. Dark golden patterns surfaced across his body. Since he had been prepared, Li Xuanfeng flipped his longbow, reached over his neck to grip the bow, and held the long golden weapon between them to block the Changshan halberd. Boom! A thunderous boom echoed through the air. A few golden ripples flashed past, and Li Xuanfeng's figure reappeared several kilometers away, golden aura surging around him. Blood glinted once more in his pupils as he coughed twice. Tang Shedu was not weak at all, and his innate ability for cultivation was topped. If it hadn't been for Yunwu blocking his techniques and preventing him from reaching Purple Mansion realm, he would have been far more formidable by now. Even so, his years of accumulation were by no means trivial. Even with preparation, Li Xuanfeng suffered a light injury from that charged blow. 2 mouthfuls of golden powder spilled from between his lips and teeth, drifting through the air, scattering in a hazy golden shimmer. Tang Shedu did not pursue him immediately. He gazed at Li Xuanfeng deeply, his voice a little hoarse as he said, "Fellow Taoist, listen again." Murong'en transformed into billowing black mist that surged forward. Devilish light eagerly followed as a demonic roar echoed through the sky. Tang Shedu, he doesn't want to run. Li Xuanfeng surged upward in golden light, shooting into the sky before anything became clear. One hand held his bow while the other drew back an arrow. Mana surged as his deep voice rolled through the clouds. Tang Shedu, you've joined the Northern Devil Dao and ambushed me. Are you not afraid that the Taoist masters will settle accounts with you later? Li Xuanfeng had no interest in a war of words. He merely needed to make sure the message was heard by all the cultivators on the battlefield. Above all else, the priority was to spread word that Tang Shedu had defected to the devils. Tang Shedu rode a stream of light as he gave chase, his cold gaze fixed forward, his halberd thrust forward, and his voice was low and indistinct. Li Xuanfeng, I joined the Northern Dao. Only Yuan Ziu bears me hatred here. His words made Li Xuanfeng's heart jolt, but a golden arrow had already been released. Tang Shedu's halberd swept up to parry the arrow, causing it to explode into a shower of golden sparks in the air. Still, he heard Li Xuanfeng murmur, trying to bargain with a tiger. Tang Shedu's expression grew complicated. When he saw the flowing radiance of Li Xuanfeng's heavenly gilded helm, it was as if he was looking at a version of himself with a different fate. He didn't hesitate as his halberd thrust out, but his voice was heavy. If I hadn't joined the North, I'd have ended up like you like this. No more chance of reaching the Purple Mansion realm. How is that any different from death? You think I can't see it clearly? The Kai family did this very thing in the past. His halberd was flowing with white radiance, fusing with the boiling mana surging from his body. He seemed like a descended god as he roared. Of course I know bargaining with tigers is futile, but if I'm destined to be a pawn refined by the Azure Pawn sect, why not gamble for backing and a Dao? What can Yuan Ziu do to me alone if I head north? And more than that, this is a supreme Buddhist fate. Thunderous words burst from Tang Shedu's mouth. He swept his halberd before him, shattering the golden light flying at him. His face was blasted full of holes by shards of astral chi, but they rapidly closed again as he raged. I know you're calling out. Good, let the world know. Let them all aid me. If they speak my name once, grant me one strand of destiny. His voice was stifled and full of fury, as if venting the frustration of being denied the Purple Mansion realm for decades. Golden light swirled in his pupils as he sneered coldly. Li Xuanfeng, you consumed a human pill. Do you even know that? You and I both committed blood debts for the demonic sect. Don't talk to me about falling into devilry. The North sucks marrow, while the South carves flesh. How are they different? While they argued, Li Xuanfeng had already fired dozens of arrows that turned into countless golden white streaks. His two immortal foundations surged to the limit, as he relied on his own strength to suppress both Tang Shedu and Murong-En, painting a vast stretch of sky gold in the process. Murong-En remained unhurried, silently activating the spirit artifact within his body to influence Li Xuanfeng before him. His voice echoed in Tang Shedu's ears. Tang Shedu, Qi Wang's profound heaven hearing has rung thrice. The killing karma is dense and the demonic seed revealed. The chance to transform karma and rise is right before you. For just a dozen of the Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators' deaths, Lord Jinlian's promised seat of the Merciful One is near. But he did not expect Tang Shedu to cast a resentful and vicious glance at him as he snapped coldly, Shut up, you. Murong-En froze for a moment, only to see Tang Shedu glaring at him like a venomous snake. You think I don't understand? This kind of turn is a great karmic opportunity for the Buddhist Tao. What Maha wouldn't want me? Layers of golden light exploded from his body as all kinds of emotions flashed through his pupils. His halberd could now intercept arrows at a greater distance, even though the shock left cracks across both hands. Still, he extended his arms and slowly walked forward. A dark golden hue appeared in Tang Shedu's eyes, streams of radiance flowing across his body. Murong-En's expression grew grim as he let his hands fall to his sides, watching coldly as Tang Shedu climbed step by step. Tang Shedu rasped, Tu Longjian. Tu Longjian was born with destiny. Fine then, 30 years of cultivation and he drives me to desperation. 50 years of struggle and he becomes a Taoist master. His fate is good. I began cultivating at 6 years old. I schemed tirelessly to please Tang Yuanwu for mere scraps of secret techniques. I've carved flesh from my own body for the sake of cultivation, endured sword and blade piercing my meridians every day under Yu Muxian. Still, I never once thought of becoming your enemy. His halberd shone with dazzling white light. Li Xuanfeng calmly broke Tang Shedu's halberd arts with 2 arrows. Unfazed, Tang Shedu pushed through the golden astral chi and asked softly, But why, Li Xuanfeng? As those words left his lips, golden light burst from him like flames, burning away the devil mist. Tang Shedu swept his halberd forward, knocking aside the golden bow, while his other hand suddenly reached out to grab Li Xuanfeng's throat. Boom! The platinum glow of the heavenly gilded helm on Li Xuanfeng's arm burst forth. Li Xuanfeng caught Tang Shedu's wrist. His piercing gray-black eyes met Tang Shedu's gaze and he said nothing. He simply held his breath and locked his hand in an icy grip. Tang Shedu slammed into a hardness as cold as iron. His breath wouldn't settle as it swelled chaotically in his chest. Li Xuanfeng felt no fear, but Tang Shedu, on the verge of ascending to the Merciful One, grew increasingly frantic. In Li Xuanfeng's eyes, the Tang Shedu now turning to Buddhism began to resemble someone else entirely. Much like his time at Zhenhui Temple, those same questions echoed across time and slithered into his ears once again. Chapter 806, Turning Point, Li Xuanfeng's hatred was a cold, still thing. Increasingly intricate profound lines began to glow on the arm gripping Tang Shedu's wrist. Strength to move mountains no longer offered a great boost by itself, but with both immortal foundations operating together, and with heavenly gilded helm enhancing his physical cultivation, his strength continued to rise steadily. Crack, crack. The snap of bones echoed audibly in the air. Li Xuanfeng squeezed until Tang Shedu's face twisted in agony. The malice in his eyes sharpened, but in the end he said no more and only murmured, Li Xuanfeng, all I wanted was to continue my Tao. To stand before them as an equal. Li Xuanfeng did not respond. Golden light gleamed in his eyes and the heavenly gilded helm on his body matched them in brilliance. Sharp, dazzling mana flowed from the engraved stone and golden light shone behind him. He had served as abbot of the Ning family for many years. He had snuffed out countless lives with his own hand. He had no lack of secret techniques. When he ignited his essence and lifespan, his two immortal foundations erupted with radiance. His sheer might had reached terrifying heights, yet Tang Shedu's aura kept climbing. His shattered wrist turned to pulp between Li Xuanfeng's fingers, yet it quickly reformed into a jade-like hand. His pupils flickered like stars in the dark clouds. He freed his halberd from the golden bow and swept it across his body. Li Xuanfeng leaped backward into the air, raised his bow, and notched several golden arrows. Wummum, wummum, wummum. Tang Shedu only watched him draw his bow, making no move to stop him. He allowed him to gather strength. Meanwhile, the white glow of his own halberd grew ever sharper as it rose to point into the sky. Li Xuanfeng was now in the best condition of his life, the strongest he had ever been. 5 golden arrows rested simultaneously upon his bowstring. The piercing hum of the arrows, amplified by his mana, traveled dozens of kilometers. The entirety of Changshui Tomb fell silent. Hi. Tang Shedu refused to back down, thunder bursting from his mouth as profound sounds echoed across the sky. Though karma now clung to him and he was tied to many Buddhist connections, he had never specifically cultivated those spells, so he ultimately fell short by a fraction. But this shortfall was only in comparison to Li Xuanfeng, who had ignited his life force and essence qi to fire an unprecedented, fully empowered arrow. Instantly, every embryonic breathing and qi cultivation realm cultivators below bled from the ears and their eyes filled with blood. Devil and immortal cultivators alike tumbled to the ground together, and even foundation establishment realm cultivators had to catch themselves. The battlefield paused for a moment. Dang! Tang Shedu's halberd arced upward in a sweep of platinum light, piercing into the skies. The 5 golden arrows above converged into one and fell from the thick clouds like a celestial meteor. Clang! The halberd in Tang Shedu's hands bent like it was bearing the weight of a golden mountain, creaking under the strain. A split second later, it lost the battle and was sent flying away like a bolt from a heavy crossbow, slamming down into the ground with a resounding crash. Boom! Golden light pierced through Tang Shedu's chest, chasing the clouds down into the tomb below. He coughed up golden blood, yet he held his head high. Both of his eyes had blasted from their sockets by overpowering astral qi. The shards of astral qi spiraled through the air behind him, trailing strings of bead-like golden blood. Tang Shedu let out 2 peals of laughter. His eyes had disintegrated, yet 2 new ones sprang from his sockets, rolling once before flashing with a savage gleam. Yuan Ziyu planned this carefully. It must be that long-missing Sidu Jun he chose, a late-stage foundation establishment realm cultivator. You took that pill and now stand at the pinnacle of Jiangnin's foundation establishment realm. Quite formidable. With such might, perhaps only a few in the grotto heavens could surpass you. But alas, alas, it came at the cost of your path to the purple mansion realm. Murong En's face burned under the brilliance of the 2 men before him, his heart filled with gloom. Though he wasn't a prince of the Murong family, he had always considered himself exceptional. Never before had he been left on the sidelines like this, unable to intervene. He could only look up at them. The clouds above were now in utter chaos. Demonic flames billowed as immortal light barely held on. Suddenly, Murong En spotted a middle-aged man flying through the wind. He held a small jade seal in both hands and tossed it into the sky. That is. Murong En was briefly stunned, but the Qi Wang's profound heaven hearing on his chest began to throb wildly, as though reuniting with an old friend. It pulsed and jumped in his chest, transmitting a thought, Xinyu Pristine Marsh Seal. Xinyu Pristine Marsh Seal. He watched as the man hurled the Dharma seal upward. The unassuming jade seal soared into the churning black clouds and the man's voice suddenly rang out, Pristine Heaven's pool below. Li Xuanfeng was fully focused on his opponent as he stood with bow drawn, when he saw a small seal rocket into the skies. That spirit artifact was unmistakable. It was Yuan Su's Xinyu Pristine Marsh Seal. Li Xuanfeng's heart sank slightly as the drifting artifact descended before him. The feathered serpent engraved upon it was so vivid and lifelike, and its eyes so domineering and arrogant, that it felt as if it would leap out the next moment. Hualala. The gray mist ahead receded, the demonic aura scattered, and a sound like rushing rain filled the air. Tang Shedu gazed skyward with a grim face as azure rain poured down. The sky had turned a hazy blue and misty ice rain fell. A pool of blue water spread beneath their feet. The rippling pool spread outward, revealing faint, hazy reflections. Murong-En, along with all the devil and immortal cultivators, vanished from sight. Only Li Xuanfeng and Tang Shedu remained within this blue-tinted world. The Great Seal expanded to the size of a desk. Where the surface had once been blank, 4 elegant azure seal script words now appeared delicate and graceful, with soft, flowing brushstrokes. Eastern Sea Pristine Plume. A beam of blue light poured down from above like a pillar, drenching the unarmed Tang Shedu. It froze him like a statue. Countless strands of azure light crept along his garments, flowing down into the illusory pool beneath his feet. The stern man in platinum armor stood before him. With an effortless motion of his ape-like arm, a golden-red rune-carved arrow leapt from his quiver and settled obediently onto the bowstring. Brilliant red-gold radiance gathered upon the string, like the convergence of 10,000 rays of light, yet all of it flowed into that single arrow, which was aimed steadily at the center of Tang Shedu's brow. Tang Shedu lifted his head in panic, staring at Li Xuanfeng. No matter how the situation had turned, his opponent's eyes had always been as cold and unyielding as stone. Now, too, there was no triumph and no pity. There was only a look of focus. The crisis of death loomed in his heart. Tang Shedu could even hear a myriad of quarrels buzzing in his ears. Water and fire intertwined before his eyes, while gold and stone clashed in brilliance. 7 rainbow-colored mountains hung in the sky, and 5 divine ladders descended into the blue light to receive him. Just a little faster. Chapter 807, Severing Fate I. Li Xuanfeng held his profound bow level as golden-red light spilled from the arrow. Several crimson streaks brushed past his cheek, the light on the profound arrow flowing vividly. Even before it struck, a bead of blood the size of a red bean had already welled up on Tang Shedu's forehead. Clang. At this point in the battle, he gave Tang Shedu no chance to speak and said not a word himself. He relaxed his fingers, and a red-gold light flared brightly in the azure sky. Hum. The golden-red profound arrow flickered once in the air, then vanished. The whispering blue rain paused momentarily, hesitating in the sky, before once again blanketing the azure waters below. Tang Shedu was immobilized within the cyan radiance, his mana surging from his body. His pupils dilated, but he could only raise his hands a palm's width apart on either side. His eyes were filled with nothing but the gold-red light. Only now did he understand why Taoist Master Yuan Su commanded such respect. Just a single divine ability cultivated at the early stage of the Purple Mansion realm was enough to make others wary. The might of the Xinyu Pristine Marsh Seal was utterly terrifying. Damn it. Even if the golden-red arrow had given him a chance to dodge, he might not have been able to avoid it. But he was pinned in place by the cyan light, and felt as if an iron nail was being driven into his brow, sending a stabbing pain through him. Boom. Just then, the 5 colorful clouds Tang Shedu had vaguely seen became clearer. 5 radiant stairways crisscrossed in the sky, colliding with one another, only to be momentarily stalled by the Xinyu Pristine Marsh Seal. Damn it, exclaimed Tang Shedu. Blue raindrops pattered down as the feathered serpent in the sky closed its eyes. The glowing azure characters of Eastern Sea Pristine Plume slowly dimmed, and the cyan light pillar dissolved into rain. Thud. Tang Shedu collapsed to his knees, the color draining from his robes and armor, leaving only 2 glimmers of light. There was no distinction between sky and water in the pristine heavens pool below, where he knelt powerlessly between the azure sky and sea. Ting, 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 ting. His eyes were screwed shut as a series of sharp impacts rang out from his body. It was the buzzing clangor of metal and iron. A line cracked open across his face with a crack, releasing a howling golden wind that peeled away 2 shriveled strips of flesh. His magical body seemed like an overinflated hide, splitting apart bit by bit along lines of golden light. Tang Shedu slowly opened his mouth wide, and golden-red brilliance gushed from his lips, ears, and nostrils and erupted into dazzling color in midair. Cough, cough. Li Xuanfeng coughed repeatedly as thick golden dust fell softly from between his lips and teeth. Dark blood flowed from his eyes, turning into round, gleaming golden beads that rolled off his cheeks with soft clinks. Yet his hands did not stop. 5 golden profound arrows leapt up once again, falling into his palms in sequence. The azure light before him began to twist and distort. Li Xuanfeng felt a sharp pain in his eyes as a hazy brilliance descended from the heavens. Everything before him fragmented into a blur, revealing boundless, ethereal golden clouds. Figures of varied expressions sat within them. There were men and women, some smiling enchantingly, others glaring with fury, others still rejoicing with delight. This hazy light was merely the ladder by which the Mahas, the merciful ones, sought to receive Tang Shedu. It brushed gently across the heavenly pool, but much of its power had been diminished by the Xinyu Pristine Marsh Seal, so it only drifted softly down over the 2 of them. Tang Shedu's shattered flesh slowly reformed, while Li Xuanfeng, who was only lightly grazed, heard his spirit armor emit sharp grinding noises. His entire body felt as if it was being pierced by 10,000 blades, and he felt his mana draining into a bottomless void until utterly depleted. His eyes were half closed, filled only with blood-red light. A deep voice echoed amid the blurry sounds around him, as if spoken by 10,000 in unison, calm and serene. "Shedu, have you seen clearly?" The voice gently reverberated through the air. A wave of warmth welled up in Li Xuanfeng's heart, and for some reason he felt tears rising to his eyes. The chorus of 10,000 voices continued to echo, growing sharper with each repetition. Tang Shedu forced his eyes open. "I've seen it clearly, seen it clearly, seen it clearly." The voice from above settled into the space, harmonizing with its own echo, as though he stood in a grand hall of chanting voices resounding all around. "You have overcome poison and endured envy, suffered 10,000 blades in the torment of karma. Now you cast off evil and embrace righteousness with full awakening. A single gleam of golden light returns to your heart. You may now enter my Buddhist Tao." The voice stabbed into Li Xuanfeng's ears, causing golden blood to stream from them, but he understood the message clearly. The northern and southern Taoist lineages had plunged Su state into chaos. In this karmic place, Tang Shedu had seized the moment, leveraging the conflict's spiritual momentum to ascend. He had done so to the extent that even a Maha had been moved to personally come and guide his transformation. Join the northern sect of Buddhism, attain one Tao among the seven, and you shall achieve the grand fruition. The voice boomed thunderously. Li Xuanfeng held his golden bow steady as mist-like multicolored light descended from the heavens, floating gently down onto Tang Shedu. His flesh began to shine with crystalline clarity as it was blessed. The golden armor faded from Tang Shedu's body, leaving his forehead smooth and white as if he returned to his original mortal form. He pressed his hands together in prayer and was about to speak, but suddenly stopped. Dong, the hazy multicolored light before them, was abruptly severed cleanly in two. A delicate hand, like white jade, emerged from the great void into the azure rain and gently clasped the floating Xinyu pristine marsh seal. The 10,000 voice chant vanished in an instant. The golden clouds dimmed, and a female cultivator in purple robes stood amidst the blue rain. She gazed down indifferently through delicate brows and cold eyes. She stepped fully into view, casually holding the Xinyu pristine marsh seal. The spirit artifact glowed obediently in her grasp. Her red lips parted as she spoke softly. "That old bald donkey is putting on his tricks again." As her words rang out, the azure pond beneath her erupted in chaos, roiling and leaping violently. It surged across 500 kilometers, sweeping away all the multicolored light and giving rise to waves of purple clouds instead. Taoist Zype. This man is fated with the northern sect of Buddhism. Chapter 808, Severing Fate, II. Li Xuanfeng immediately felt relief in his ears and eyes as the purple clouds billowed upward. He recognized the purple-robed female cultivator in the sky as none other than Taoist Master Xipai of the Purple Smoke Gate. This Taoist master had old ties with Taoist Master Yuansu. It was she who handed the Xinyu pristine marsh seal to Ning Heiyuan. She was a peak Purple Mansion realm cultivator and a pillar of the Purple Smoke Gate. "Why are you doing this?" A low, rumbling voice filled with restrained anger rang in Li Xuanfeng's ears. Fortunately, the purple mist had blocked most of the pressure, and what reached him was tolerable. Taoist Master Xipai stood in midair, arms folded, and said lightly, "Pai Jia, I say he is without fate." Her tone was calm, like stating a fact, giving not the slightest face to the Maha Pai Jia. The colorful clouds offered no reply, leaving only a terrifying silence hanging in the air. The drizzling azure rain fell into the blue waters, causing ripples that collided with one another. A Maha and a Purple Mansion realm cultivator stood in quiet confrontation within the pristine heavens pool below, under the Xinyu pristine marsh seal until, at last, the chorus of 10,000 voices resounded from the multicolored clouds. "Xipai, Azure Pond has lost the disciple, and then he lost again to this bow-wielding man. From wild joy to bitter envy, this child must now fall from Jinlian and into my grasp. Such is the natural order." Suiguan stands by with folded arms. "Why then do you, Taoist friend, step in for him?" Xipai's voice, as always, was cool and distant, but as she spoke, the violet chi around her surged and rippled. "I've been in secluded cultivation for many years, long troubled by doubts over destiny. Now, though on the verge of a breakthrough, I still cannot let it go. So I've taken this chance to test it, even if there's reason or no reason." Since Taoist Master Xipai was approaching her breakthrough, Maha Pai Jia clearly had no desire to quarrel with her. He merely responded in a heavy tone, "And what does Taoist friend intend? You say he is fated, and I say he is not." Taoist Master Xipai tossed the jade seal in her hand, speaking softly. "Why don't you and I, Maha Pai Jia, resolve this? Does this man truly share destiny with your northern Buddhist sect or not?" Maha Pai Jia's tone noticeably softened, clearly confident in this matter. Buddhist cultivators were, after all, most adept at manipulating fate. What need had he to fear a mere Purple Mansion realm cultivator? He sneered inwardly but replied in a tone as warm as 10,000 voices. So Taoist friend wishes for me to resolve this fate, how splendid indeed. His voice threaded through the clouds and pressed against the violet chi, causing it to surge turbulently. He said, though you have broken his foundation and returned him to mortal flesh, all the threads of destiny have already gathered upon him. As long as he lives, ascending to the Merciful One's seat would take but a moment. You are beyond the bounds of fate, and your divine powers vast. So long as you do not kill him, then in 6 seconds, he shall be guided by countless forces and take his place among the merciful ones. Very well. Taoist Master Zaipai nodded, but then she asked, and if he does not? Mahapaijia's voice paused briefly and grew more cautious as he asked, what does the Taoist Master mean by that? I shall take back the Qi Wang's profound heaven hearing, replied Taoist Master Zaipai. She stared quietly at him. The rainbow clouds around Mahapaijia rolled heavily, and after 2 seconds of silence his resounding voice echoed, this honored one would gaze upon that volume, the Taeksu Violet Qi Manual. For the first time a mocking smile appeared on Taoist Master Zaipai's face. You have always been insatiably greedy, you bald old monk. Even if I could give it, would you dare to look? Mahapaijia was not angered. His voice seemed to slowly relax as if he trusted her even more, and he hummed in reply, then let it be the purple essence radiant canopy. Taoist Master Zaipai gave him a deep look and nodded slightly. I will not strike him. If he cannot ascend to the Dharma realm within 6 seconds, then let it be deemed he is without fate. Mahapaijia nodded softly, and in that moment, a streak of violet light leapt from Zaipai's hand toward the colored clouds. The dense purple aura that had silently filled the pristine heavens pool below rose as one and crashed into the clouds. Boom! She struck without warning. Violet light and energy surged forth together, slamming into the multicolored clouds and disrupting the Maha's spiritual connection, but Mahapaijia was not alarmed. He was delighted as he said, I have long awaited for this, Taoist Master. It was clear Mahapaijia had anticipated this. Golden rays rose from within the colored clouds, swirling and surging, forcefully dispersing the boiling violet clouds and causing waves to ripple through the great void. You simply seek to hinder my Dharma realm. In the end, this is but a duel of techniques. Think you can block my spiritual connection for 6 seconds. You truly underestimate me, said Paijia. The chaotic drone of chanting swirled through the sea of clouds. Violet light rose like a sun and burst forth with a boom. Maha's words came to an abrupt halt, leaving only the purple radiance overwhelming the skies. Finally, the flowing golden light revealed its true form. A golden figure of a man emerged in the sky, shrouded in hazy violet smoke. Hundreds of radiant gazes beamed from him. The chant of 10,000 voices continued without interruption, while lotus petals drifted down in a shower of soft pinks. Taoist Master Zaipai stood gracefully in her flowing purple robes, hands behind her back, watching in silence. She raised a slender hand and pushed, causing the Xinyu pristine marsh seal before her to blaze with brilliance, sending waves of pristine water light rippling and spreading through the air. In her hands, the Xinyu pristine marsh seal was a far cry from when Ning Heiyuan wielded it. Its cyan brilliance flew out with 9 trailing flames, contracting into a massive formation in the sky and slowly pressing downward. The Maha's true body, along with his multicolored clouds, was sealed within. A full second passed before there was movement. The pounding within made the seal tremble ceaselessly. A sliver of golden light burst forth as Mahapaijia coldly growled, Good, Taoist Zaipai, your strength has truly grown. His colored clouds gradually flowed out from the cyan light, pressing down over the violet mist once again. Mahapaijia's voice sounded like 10,000 chanting in unison as it echoed across the sky, but you truly overestimated yourself. To think you didn't even bring the purple essence radiant canopy, did you mistake me for a clay statue? He withdrew from the cyan light as his words rang out. His multicolored brilliance surged skyward, intending to reach Tang Shedu. The entire skirmish had cost him no more than 5 seconds. His true form emerged beneath the violet clouds, where dozens of indistinct, densely packed eyes appeared. A few deep, satisfied laughs escaped him. But before his voice could echo through the seal, a faint sound arose from below the dense violet mist. Crack! The Maha's smile froze in an instant. Though the sound was delicate, it struck his ears like thunder. The violet cloud churned and scattered, revealing the azure waters below. Li Xuanfeng's lips were smeared with golden blood. Though the rainbow light had grazed him, leaving his entire body feeling like it had been pierced by 10,000 blades and his vision unclear, his ears had locked onto Tang Shedu's breathing, and he had lunged like a tiger. Tang Shedu had just seen Li Xuanfeng collapse with colors swirling in the air. He had taken only a single step back, but as a mere mortal, where could he flee? His throat had been constricted as he was lifted high into the air. Li Xuanfeng had seized Tang Shedu in one motion, raising him into the air. Without hesitation, his 5 fingers squeezed down. Crack! Tang Shedu hadn't even drawn another breath before his neck snapped. Disbelief filled his gaze. Mahapaijia cleared the violet mist just in time to see Tang Shedu's head droop limply. A surge of astral chi inflated his body like a balloon, carving the insides clean. In less than a second, Tang Shedu was reduced to dust from head to toe. If he was sufficiently prepared, Li Xuanfeng's astral chi could even prevent a sorcerer from reincarnating, let alone a mortal. Tang Shedu was utterly obliterated. Mahapaijia needed no explanation as he took in the scene. The illusionary pristine heavens pool conjured by the Xinyu pristine marsh seal fell utterly silent. Even the soft sound of rain had vanished, leaving only the whistling of golden wind echoing through the clouds. Mahapaijia's smile slowly faded. He finally understood why the violet chi had remained so heavy. It had merely been to veil everything below. Zaipai stood calmly in the clouds, arms folded, as the purple light and mist drifted back into her sleeves. Her voice was cool. It seems this man and your Tao truly lack the destined bond. Chapter 809, Great Defeat I. Mahapaijia's figure withdrew back into the multicolored clouds, layers of gazes retracting with him, leaving only his vast, resonant voice. Zaipai, how could you do this? When Mahapaijia had manifested in this world, he had deliberately brushed the archer with divine radiance. How could such brilliance, used to receive one into the Dharma realm, be something a mere foundation establishment realm cultivator could resist? He should have lost his mind long ago. If not for finding this archer rather intriguing, that sweep of divine light would have reduced Li Xuanfeng to dust. But Mahapaijia had restrained himself, thinking that even if he couldn't tame him, he could leave him as karmic destiny for Tang Shedu to achieve the Merciful One. It was with all that planning and restraint that he had left Li Xuanfeng alive. The amount of radiance had been calculated to perfection. It should have moved Li Xuanfeng to tears and planted a seed in his heart that would one day sprout. Who could have imagined it would turn out like this? Li Xuanfeng's condition was completely different from what his calculations had predicted. Startled and doubtful, Mahapaijia's thoughts surged like a tide. An instant later, he reacted, causing the clouds to shift and roll. Did Zaipai strike early? Thought the Mahapaijia dismissed the thought without hesitation. Though there were differences among Purple Mansion realm cultivators, Zaipai practiced Immortal Mansion secret techniques and possessed first-rate spirit artifacts. But these were all meant for frontal combat. Even 3 Zaipais combined wouldn't rival him when it came to scheming and calculation. If Zaipai had intervened to protect Li Xuanfeng or assisted him secretly, there was no way he wouldn't have seen it. Moreover, the result could not have aligned so cleanly with Li Xuanfeng remaining unconscious and unable to act, just as he had calculated. His thoughts leapt across the great void in an instant, and everything became painfully clear. It was Jinlian and Zhelu. Only another Maha's intervention would be able to conceal everything so flawlessly and fool even him. The combined efforts of Jinlian and Zhelu, who had accompanied him south, were more than enough to throw off his calculations. Mahapaijia's gaze sank into the clouds as he swiftly unraveled the clues. Zaipai's seemingly playful and death-seeking gestures had been mere misdirection. The female cultivator had reached a tacit agreement with the 2 Mahas and had plotted against him. As for how the other 2 had acted earlier than him despite appearing slower, Mahapaijia could easily guess that it must have been the unseen efforts of Yuan Ziu and Qiushui. Jinlian and Zhelu had fought just as fiercely against him earlier for Tang Shedu, so it made perfect sense they would be just as unwilling for Tang Shedu to fall into his hands now. That didn't surprise Mahapaijia. What truly caught him off guard was Taoist Master Zaipai's stance. Be it Yuan Su, Yuan Ziu, even Qiushui or Tiandong, these so-called Taoist masters always held themselves above others and were never willing to compromise with us. And now they're working in sync with Jinlian and Zhelu. I misjudged only one thing. Qi Wang's profound heaven hearing is far more important than I had imagined. Even Jinlian and Zhelu realized it only after the fact, but by then it was too late for regrets. Yet there was no anger in Paijia's voice, only a silent faint chill in the air as he spoke. Fellow Taoists, you've all schemed so thoroughly against me, simply because Qi Wang's profound heaven hearing is that important. Purple, gold, and demonic Taos are truly impressive. To leave it in my hands for 100 years while pretending not to care, that's the very embodiment of the elegance of the demonic Tao. Taoist Master Zaipai arched her willow leaf brows slightly and uttered just a few words. Bald donkey, will you deliver it yourself or shall I come and take it? Mahapaijia's voice grew somewhat ethereal, reverberating as it scattered amidst the blue rain. Suit yourself, Taoist Master. The colorful clouds in the sky rolled back and gradually faded into the great void. The blue rain overhead grew increasingly illusory. Li Xuanfeng's vision cleared at last, and he looked up at the 2 streaks of descending multicolored light. Congratulations, Taoist Master Zaipai, said Li Xuanfeng. 1 light and 1 shadow appeared within the great void. The stern, aged face of Yuan Ziu appeared first. His robes were as neat and proper as ever, imbued with flowing azure. Though clearly the youngest among them, he had never preserved his looks, thus appearing older than he was. The other figure was naturally Taoist Master Qiushui of the Golden Feather sect. The female cultivator swept her sleeve, casting a burst of golden light that suppressed Li Xuanfeng's injuries before she finally spoke, Qi Wang's profound heaven hearing. Fortunately, not too many complications arose. Taoist Master Zaipai nodded, showing Zhang Qiushui a rare bit of warmth as she said softly, Pai Jie is still young. He's still unseasoned compared to those two old bald donkeys, Jinlian and Zhelu. Catching him off guard made things easier to manipulate. Taoist Yuanziu beckoned, and Li Xuanfeng's golden bow shot into his hand. With a slight tug, a streak of colored light leapt from the bow and returned to his palm, merely going with the flow. Yuanziu flicked his wrist with a trace of distaste and shattered the colored light. When he withdrew his hand, the golden bow floated back into Li Xuanfeng's grip, neither heavier nor lighter than before. It seemed no different to the eye. Li Xuanfeng understood. When he had exited seclusion, this bow had just been repaired and handed to him by Kai Jian. It had surely been tampered with beforehand so that it could be used in the scheme against the Maha, Tang Shedu. Had long been seen through, nothing more than a pawn. Azure light sank fully back into the seal as the three Taoists conversed. The pristine heavens pool beneath their feet faded, revealing once more the sinister demonic qi of Chengshui tomb. Using the mana he had just stabilized, Li Xuanfeng rode the wind and stood firm above a swamp of glistening rainwater. The demonic aura rolled through the air, and the Azure Pond sect cultivators were nowhere to be seen. Li Xuanfeng. As he looked into the distance, searching for traces of his kin, a sinister shout rang out. A surge of thick demonic qi swept forth, shrouded in pitch-black magical light. Murong'en burst forth from the depths of Chengshui tomb. Moments ago, he had fought within the seal and naturally targeted the Azure Pond sect cultivators. He had crushed them all and was now brimming with pride. When he saw Li Xuanfeng's dull armor, his faint breath, pale face, and nearly depleted mana, he immediately burst into laughter. And what can you do now? Though Murong'en didn't know what had transpired within the seal, Maha Pai Jie's radiance had just retreated, and it was almost certain that Tang Shedu had entered the Dharma realm. Since Li Xuanfeng had survived, he was likely on their side now. Though Murong'en had formed his own conclusions, he remained cautious, merely rising on the wind and observing from afar. Li Xuanfeng, noticing that he didn't seem to see the three Taoist masters standing before him, lowered his head slightly in silence. He understood the demon was finished. Since Maha Pai Jie agreed to hand over Qi Wang's profound heaven hearing, Murong'en must have been abandoned. As expected, Taoist Yuanziu glanced at Murong'en and nodded, Qi Wang's profound heaven hearing. Taoist Master Qiushui smiled faintly and spoke gently, I'll do it. A faint smile lingered on her face as her red lips moved slightly, as though casually summoning a household servant. Her voice was crisp and gentle, You demon, come here. Chapter 810, Great Defeat II. Li Xuanfeng watched closely as Murong'en seemed to suddenly hear something. He tilted his head as if listening intently. A red-gray glow flared behind his head. The demon had taken on human form. His thick brows rose, his eyes widened, lips pressed tight, and he scrambled forward, tripping and crawling in his panic. The three Taoist masters watched in silence. Murong'en solemnly lifted his robe and performed a deep ceremonial bow. Forming his hand into a blade, he drew twice across his chest, then reached into his chest. He fumbled briefly before yanking out a dark, blackened heart, in obedience to the immortal command of the honored Taoist master. The heart still billowed with demonic qi. Murong'en clutched it tightly, as though it weren't his own, then quickly drew a blade from his waist. One hand held the heart aloft, the other forcefully plunged a knife into it. Squelch! A gray wind swept through the sky, rustling with eerie whispers. Li Xuanfeng's heart skipped a beat as he saw the wind blow in from the east. The few remaining plants at his feet bowed low. It was a sign of someone's fall. Murong'en nonchalantly took his own life as if it were only natural. Even after tearing out his heart, some awareness remained in his mind. Murong'en hastily reached into his body with 2 fingers, retrieved a pearl-sized azure orb, and wiped the demonic aura off of it. He then knelt respectfully and offered it up with both hands. Zaipai gently beckoned with her hand, and Qi Wang's profound heaven hearing flew into her palm. She lifted it for a close look. Beside her, Murong'en's demonic body began to collapse, yet he maintained his respectful posture. Black mist, thick as a waterfall, poured from his body and spilled into the air. Qi Wang's profound heaven hearing. After 100 years, it is finally back in our hands. None of the 3 Taoist masters cast a single glance at him. Demonic mist drifted beneath their feathered robes and jade boots, shrouding Chengshui tomb in darkness. Boom. A sudden thunderclap split the sky, illuminating the surroundings. 3 beams of multicolored light stood atop the demonic clouds. Yet the once arrogant and unbridled devil cultivator lay dead like a dog, silent and unnoticed. Li Xuanfeng looked down in silence as rain poured from the sky. Beneath his feet, Chengshui tomb had already turned into marshland when Taoist Master Zaipai used the Xinyu pristine marsh seal. Now it was a flooded expanse, rippling with dark light. Thunder roared across the sky. He watched the three beams of multicolored light flicker in and out of the white lightning. Murong En's demonic aura still clung to his spirit boots. As thunder crashed again, he suddenly heard Taoist Yuan Ziu's deep voice. The one that fell is the great Ning Palace. The geomantic lines of Chengshui Tomb shifted without rest. Water veins surged, and water droplets formed everywhere in the dark cliffside cave dwellings. Rain pattered down without end, pouring furiously into the depths and vanishing into the black underground. Li Qinghang took a medicinal pill and adjusted her breath for a while until her complexion visibly improved. Li Zijai and Li Quantao were both in poor condition, and the elder Yu Yuwei looked equally grim. They were currently in a corner of Chengshui Tomb. Li Qinghang had fought her way out through waves of demonic qi, fleeing all the way to the subterranean ravine before things slightly stabilized. She had once sought thunder essence here years ago and had leased a cave dwelling in the area for her family. Now, when the group fled into this ravine, she led them to that same cave to take refuge. Fellow Taoist Qinghang, we're in serious trouble now. Yu Yuwei's voice was hoarse, but he was only stating what everyone already understood. Tang Shedu's betrayal may have been within the calculations of certain Purple Mansion realm cultivators, but the extent of the damage was unknown. However, what was certain was the blow it dealt to the allied cultivators. He had revealed the deployment of their forces to the devil cultivators. Over a dozen Foundation Establishment realm cultivators had been picked off one by one, and their forces had been nearly annihilated. The reinforcing devil cultivators had surrounded Lingu Laniang, Zhuangcheng, and several others. The outcome of the aerial clash between Li Xunfeng and Tang Shedu remained unknown, but Murong En had descended on devil winds, and those who were already struggling stood no chance against him. They had suffered a heavy blow and scattered in all directions. We don't even know how many might still be alive, said Li Qinghang. Li Qinghang closed her eyes. Qinghang was a Buddhist cultivator of the ancient ways. He was not offensively strong, but he should be able to survive the chaos. Li Wushao, on the other hand, was much more uncertain. Whether he could escape was unclear. She didn't believe Tang Shedu could defeat Li Xunfeng, but she was worried that Li Xunfeng might linger after killing him and get swarmed by the devil cultivators. But even setting aside his condition, returning to rescue him would likely only lead to more deaths. Since she had gone to rescue Li Zijai, she hadn't been caught in the encirclement nor encountered Murong En. The fact she managed to break through and escape with a few others was already a stroke of luck. There was no going back now. As she pondered all this, she heard Yu Yuwei speak in a low voice. Have any of you seen Yu Su bringing his forces this way? According to the Azure Ponsec's plan, Li Xunfeng and Tang Shedu should have joined forces to rout the devil cultivators, while Yu Su would lead troops north along the only remaining southern path from Chengshui Tomb. He would be perfectly positioned to cut off fleeing enemies and support the two. But when the cultivators fled south, they encountered devil cultivators everywhere. The more they fought, the more enemies appeared. They had been forced to hide in this location, yet not a single trace of Yu Su's forces was anywhere to be seen. Li Zijai slowly opened his eyes and said quietly, "Do you recall that the Murong family was supposed to have 2 members present, yet we only saw Murong En? Where did the other one go?" A chill settled in his heart as he continued, "I'm afraid Tang Shedu leaked information, and Yu Su was likely ambushed on the road. Perhaps he even defected. In any case, that force is probably scattered. If that's true, Mount Yan Pass is in grave danger." Li Zijai pointed to the south. Yu Yuwei stood up and walked to the cave entrance. When he saw columns of demonic smoke rising over Mount Yan Pass in the distance, he waved his sleeve and returned inside, saying hoarsely, Zijai's guess was dead on. Li Quantao finally realized where the missing Murong family devil cultivator had gone. After a moment of silence, he suddenly realized that the southern road was entirely overrun by demonic forces and murmured, "If Mount Yan Pass falls, heading south is a dead end. If it's taken, our only path is to follow the river all the way around to Beixiang Valley, and who knows how many devil cultivators we'll face along the way. Beixiang Valley may not even be safe," said Yu Yuwei roughly. After he spoke, Li Quantao murmured softly, "What are the Taoist masters really thinking?" "What should we think?" Yu Yuwei let out a deep sigh from his throat, his aged face caught between fury and sorrow as he said in a raspy voice, "Do we even need to think? Too many in Jiangnan have died. The Purple Mansion realm Taoist masters must have bargained with the demonic cultivators for enough benefits. Perhaps it was a spirit artifact, a grotto heaven, or some mystical cultivation method. You think we just suffer these losses for no reason? And those Purple Mansion realm figures would just stand and watch. The ones who keep dying are never their direct descendants, so what can't they bring themselves to do? 100 years from now, the Purple Mansion realm will be theirs, not ours. In the end, we're just ashes. What use are we to them?" The nearly 300-year-old man had seen far too much. His words sent chills down everyone's spine. Li Quantao stared at him quietly and then fell into sudden silence. Chapter 811, Chaiman Difu I. Yu Yuwei's voice was low, but it echoed through the cave dwelling, causing the young man to pause. Li Quantao's lips trembled and a blush rose to his still recovering face. He turned his head slightly and said softly, "None of them are good people. My father was ruined by Kai Wei, trapped on the mountain for life and unable to take a single step out. He was forced to refine pills like a drug slave." Purple Mansion Realm cultivators have always been the most heartless of all. The group sat in helpless silence inside the cave. Yu Yue coughed twice, his expression unreadable, and replied quietly, "Quanto, we might not make it out alive this time. I don't have many years left either, so let me be frank." If the one who had been injured and trapped in the secret realm back then had been Li Yancheng, and he had formed his Purple Mansion realm, he would have been even more terrifying than Kai Wei. Li Quanta already held some resentment toward the old man. When he heard this, his expression froze and anger surged up. He abruptly stood up. The entanglement between Li Yancheng and Kai Wei was old history. Forcing himself to restrain his anger, he spoke coldly. "What are you talking about, senior? What about how Yu Yuxi was harmed? This is heartless and unjust. Even if you bear no hatred toward him, how can you speak well of him? My father had his faults, but it is not your place to judge." Yu Yue sighed and replied, "You are nothing like Li Yancheng. There's no point dredging up these old moldy matters. I have long come to terms with it. And let's be honest, when you and I look upon those in the Qi cultivation or embryonic breathing realms, do we treat them any better? From our position, if sacrificing a few unrelated cultivators meant gaining treasures like the Qi Wang's profound heaven hearing or the Xinyu pristine marsh seal, would you take the chance or not?" Li Quanta opened his mouth but fell silent. Yu Yue chuckled. "Don't talk to me about how heartless the Purple Mansion realm is. The esteemed families whip tenant farmers, cultivators trample those in the embryonic breathing realm, and human blood becomes fine spirit medicine. Immortal foundations consume it to unlock divine arts. It has been nothing but blood and tears for over 1,000 years. Ruthlessness is the true path of the immortals." The old man sat in the cave with arms folded, his words drawing a sideways glance from Li Zijai. Veteran cultivators like Yu Yue had witnessed 3 centuries of rises and falls, so he must have many stories. It's just not the time for such talk yet. Li Zijai glanced twice at the map in his hand and said solemnly, "Mount Yan Pass likely won't hold. This place has become too devil-infested, and more devil cultivators will surely follow. As dangerous as it is, the earlier we leave, the greater our chances of survival." Li Qinghang nodded in agreement, pondered for a few breaths, and said softly, "I once cultivated. If you head directly east from this place, there should be a cave dwelling situated within the earth veins to the east of Chengshui Tomb. That cave dwelling connects to a water vein that leads all the way to the Eastern Sea. Though this land is now tainted by demonic forces, if we follow the water vein and emerge in the Eastern Sea, we can ride the wind all the way to Spleetered Island and return via the shallow sea." Li Zijai checked the location she indicated. It was only a quarter-hour's flight away. He looked at the other two and asked, "What do the two of you think?" Yu Yue and Li Quantao naturally couldn't think of a better plan and both nodded in agreement. As the group left the cave dwelling, Li Quantao muttered, "It's a pity we don't have a single stealth Dharma artifact among us. Otherwise, we wouldn't need to go through all this trouble." His words reminded Li Qinghang. Under Li Yuanjiao's control, her profound patterned bottle could conceal traces, but in her own hands it could only emit thunder and store arcane lightning. Unfortunately, none of us possessed the boundless ocean technique. Still, it would only be enough to hide one person anyway. Since she had lightning beneath her feet and her cyan feathered robe, the cyan sparrow plume, enhancing her, she was the fastest among them. Li Zijai traveled with heavenly glow and was nearly as quick, but they still had to slow down to wait for Li Quantao and Yu Yue. They had barely flown a dozen kilometers when the scenery turned grim. Demonic energy rolled like mist, and the original black locust trees and white stone tombs had vanished. Murky waters spread out below their feet, and skeletal remains floated faintly on the surface. Chengshui Tomb. It should be called Chengshui Swamp from now on. 2 beams of demonic light rose from afar and dove into the swamp. White smoke rose with them, and people came and went. They did not resemble a patrol, but more like panic cultivators. Several devil cultivators streaked northward through the clouds on wind. They passed just half a kilometer from the group, leaving thick black mist in their wake. Li Zijai's heart stirred at the chaotic scene. He exchanged a glance with Li Qinghang. Both of them had noticed something unusual about the devil cultivators, and thought a good opportunity. They skimmed across the water's surface, weaving past the tips of locust trees jutting out, covering most of the distance before finally encountering 2 Qi cultivation realm devil cultivators. Did a few lords arrive just now, for Murong En to die like that, and for there to be not a single whisper? The 2 devil cultivators were flying east while conversing intently. One looked suspicious, and the other replied, "Hard to say. All I heard is that Chuoba retreated, and someone from the Hellion family arrived. Even the lord from the Shilu family showed up despite the tough situation. Don't you think it's almost certain that there's another treasure involved?" The Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators had concealed themselves, of course, so these low-level Qi Cultivation Realm cultivators didn't sense a thing. Li Quantao glanced at them and sent a voice transmission through Mana. Shall we capture them for questioning? Yu Yue gently shook his head. They were deep in hostile territory and were only a few kilometers from the cave dwelling. They didn't need unnecessary trouble, so they flew past without drawing attention. The dark water rippled as Li Qingheng came to a stop at one spot and examined it carefully. Though Changshui Tomb was now completely flooded and the terrain unrecognizable, her spiritual sense probed the depths and quickly confirmed it against her memories. She had found the cave entrance. The place was a wreck. The stone steps and steel at the entrance had been shattered and submerged. The black water concealed the bottom, so there was no telling if any devil cultivators were inside. Li Qingheng and the others closed their eyes to probe further, only to sense that the two devil cultivators they had passed earlier were slowly catching up and hovering over the same stretch of water. One tall and one thin, the two were chatting animatedly. The taller one, who had first spoken, looked puzzled and asked, which lord from the Shilu family came? Supposedly the Bo Lai King, Shilufu. The short devil cultivator responded with a nod, and the other man's expression immediately changed, showing caution as he asked quietly, "Apologies for troubling you, fellow cultivator. I was sent on an errand earlier and haven't had a chance to ask around. I just wanted to know, does this lord consider himself a Hudi tribesman, or does he align with the Northerners?" The other devil cultivator raised his head, smiling faintly. The first cultivator immediately understood and hurriedly passed something over, at which point the other chuckled and said, "That's easy enough to answer. Bo Lai Prefecture lies within Qi State. All of this lord's trusted aides are Northerners." "I see." The devil cultivator's eyes lit up as he replied, "Then we should respectfully refer to him as Gao Fu and definitely avoid mentioning the Shilu family." "You're right. It all depends on his temper, but it's best to err on the side of caution." Chapter 812, Chaiman Difu II. When he heard the nervousness in their exchange, Li Zijie needed no further confirmation. This Bo Lai King Gao Fu was very likely a Purple Mansion realm cultivator. Tension stirred in his heart as he thought, more and more powerful cultivators are arriving from the north. It's vast up there, nothing like Jiangnan. Everyone exchanged glances, then looked to Li Zijie. After all, capturing techniques were a specialty of his heavenly glow art. No one present could match him in that regard. Even if they were just Qi Cultivation Realm cultivators, it was still best to act decisively. Li Zijie understood at once. Two streaks of rainbow light leaped forth with a flick of his sleeve, diving into the water and darting forward like swimming serpents. The two devil cultivators were standing still when suddenly, rainbow light surged from beneath their feet. Startled, they shot upward, but there was no escaping Li Zijie's preparation. The rainbow lights captured them in an instant. A white mist immediately enveloped the two devil cultivators. They were both tossed about and their Dharma artifacts knocked from their hands by heavenly glow. When their vision cleared, 4 Taoists stood before them. 4 Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators. The two were so terrified the world spun around them. They exchanged a glance and began kowtowing frantically, begging for mercy. But Li Qingheng had no intention of wasting time. 2 bolts of lightning danced in her hands and locked onto their brows. She was ready to strike in an instant. Ignoring their panicked faces, she waved her hand to separate them and asked sternly, "How many cultivators are in the cave?" "My lord." The 2 devil cultivators couldn't see each other, preventing any chance of coordinating answers. Faced with a Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator skilled in thunder arts and already missing 6 of their 7 souls, they didn't dare lie. They quickly answered, "My lord. The cave-dwelling house's followers of Ancestor Difu. We don't know what mission he accepted, but he's stationed here. We're just minor subordinates. We haven't committed any killings. We just beg to live." Their answers were mostly consistent, so Li Qingheng pressed further. "There's only one devil leader. Any reinforcements nearby?" She questioned them thoroughly. Although there weren't many major devil cultivators in the area, this Ancestor Difu appeared to be a formidable one. He was an old devil cultivator who had wandered through Su and Yue states for years, with unfathomably deep demonic arts. However, with 4 cultivators on her side, Li Qingheng wasn't afraid of a single devil cultivator. But if a fight broke out and drew the attention of others, that could be trouble. After a moment of thought, she asked, "What else do you know about this devil? Where is he originally from?" Ancestor Difu's surname is Chaiman. He's a devil cultivator from Zhao. Word is he offended someone powerful in Zhao, so he's been roaming around Su and Yue states ever since, replied one of the devil cultivators. Chaiman. Li Qingheng pressed them with a few more questions. Chaiman wasn't a renowned clan in the north, which put her a bit at ease. Li Zijie asked softly, "That Bo Lai King, has he already entered the Great Void?" "Reporting to my lord, he most likely has," replied one of the devil cultivators. Yu Yue made a swift decision and said gravely, "We can't delay any longer. Strike now, kill him, and flee toward the eastern sea. If we hesitate, we'll surely lose our chance." With their decision made, 2 bolts of lightning tightly bound the captives. Li Qinghong took them and descended first on Lightning, with the other three cautiously following her. Glimmers of light quickly rose from the dark waters. Li Qinghong soon spotted the glow of mana-based illumination, and on closer look, realized it was merely a low-tier Qi cultivation realm formation. She had brought the captives down with her in case the formation was tough and required deception to bypass. Unexpectedly, this Chaiman Difu, despite being a long-time Foundation Establishment realm cultivator, was so penniless he still used an early-stage Qi cultivation realm formation. Then again, it makes sense. If he's just using a temporary spot to rest for a month or two, why waste high-grade formations? Reflecting on it, Li Qinghong realized that even she with a notable background was still using Qi cultivation realm formations. Chaiman Difu wouldn't be any better off. It's just that I've seen too many direct descendants. It seems I've gotten used to a higher standard. Since they were no longer needed, 2 lightning bolts burst forth and reduced the devil cultivators to ash. Li Qinghong raised her Duruo spear and struck directly at the formation with one thrust. Boom! A white bolt of thunder exploded underwater, sending the black swamp water rushing in with a deafening roar. Behind her, Li Zijai summoned a beam of heavenly glow to hold back the waters, then swept his sleeve to erase all noise. Thus, the surface of the swamp remained still, mirroring the dark clouds above like a mirror. There was no trace of Foundation Establishment realm activity that could be detected. Who's there? An old voice rang out in alarm and confusion. It was clearly Chaiman Difu. Fierce black winds surged along the earth veins as the formation shattered like an eggshell, alerting the old devil. As a Foundation Establishment realm cultivator, Chaiman Difu clearly hadn't built the formation for defense. It was only an alarm. Once the group broke through, a vast subterranean chamber came into view. 2 devil cultivators had been guarding the gate, but now they leaped to their feet in terror. Their blood-colored light hadn't even turned into escape light before Li Qinghong's group was already upon them. Boom! 2 blasts of Dharma light shot toward them. A purple flame dragon roared and obliterated one into black smoke, while a bolt of lightning struck the other, turning him to ash. Huff! As dark clouds rolled through the cave, the remaining Qi cultivation realm devil cultivators screamed and fled inside. Li Qinghong's feathered robe lit up, streaks of blue-white light and thunder falling with her spear. She was blazing bright and unstoppable. Yu Yue also understood the moment's urgency. Water and fire lights surged from his body, and a violetrid cauldron flew out, summoning 2 purple dragons that swept through the black mist. Li Quanta's water wall pearl lifted a curtain of white water that instantly dispersed the black fog, revealing an old man with a dazed expression. With Li Qinghong and Yu Yue striking in tandem, and Li Quanto and Li Zijai assisting from the flanks, their combined strength was enough to shock even a newly reincarnated Chuoba Changyuan. Though they were all injured, they had prepared well. Their assault was enough to shake the whole cave dwelling, sending stones crashing down. Chaiman Difu, garbed in black with snow-white hair, looked every bit the aged devil he was. He held a strange black ring in his hand, and his robes glimmered faintly with black light. His aged eyes were filled with terror and confusion. He nearly coughed up blood on the spot. Purple flame dragons and crackling lightning intertwined before him. One side was blazing fire and the other dazzling thunder. Either one demanded his full strength, yet they came at him without warning. The spell he had just activated was instantly scattered. Though he had wandered Su and Yue states for years and seen much, even he was caught utterly unprepared and nearly froze on the spot. What esteemed Purple Mansion realm bloodline have I offended? Or have I fallen into someone's trap? How did it come to this? Chapter 813 Zai Chang I. Chaiman Difu only had time to spit out a black seal from his chest, but before the billowing black smoke could even unfurl, lightning and fire came crashing down in red and white flashes. Boom. Chaiman Difu let out a muffled groan and spat 2 mouthfuls of black blood. He immediately formed a seal, summoning 3 black skulls. A mere thought shattered the jade pendant at his waist to summon reinforcements. Even with only half a brain, Chaiman Difu knew that using the pendant so hastily meant no one was likely to come. At best, they'd just gather at the entrance to watch the show. Still, better something than nothing. Chaiman Difu forcefully suppressed his internal injuries and used mana to defend. Suddenly, a flash of rainbow light struck like a venomous snake, coiling twice around his black seal. The Dharma artifact felt both heavy and light, as if an enormous hand were yanking it down. Chaiman Difu was an old devil who had refined this seal in his belly for many years. Had he not, the earlier blast of flame and lightning, followed by Heavenly Glow's tug, would have sent it crashing to the ground. Thus it still hovered midair, but it clearly no longer obeyed him properly. Shhh. White rain rose from the ground and swept forward with the raging wind. The demon's smoke that was forming around him to conceal his form and defend against spells hadn't even taken shape before it was completely blown away, leaving only a mist of white rain around him. Danger. With all 4 attackers striking together, only one thought remained in Chaiman Difu's mind: I can't delay any longer. Though he was bitterly frustrated, he immediately realized the four before him were all formidable. The Thunder Cultivator, in particular, was overwhelmingly powerful and directly countered Devil Cultivators. If he didn't act now, he wouldn't even be able to escape later. The old devil was exceedingly decisive. He clapped his hands together, and the black shadow in the air flared brightly. His body turned into demonic light in the blink of an eye, and the black seal exploded with a bang before the four's eyes. Boom! A surge of deep black magic light burst forth. Li Qingheng immediately raised her spear in defense, then without the slightest hesitation, parted her red lips and spat out a white light. The white light pulsed like a breath, then rapidly expanded. It was none other than the profound thunder condensed from Li Qingheng's thunderpool via the purple talisman origin light secret technique. This old devil truly is ruthless. He discarded a Foundation Establishment Realm Dharma artifact just like that, and who knows how many years' worth of magic energy it contained, all shattered to buy time. Now in the late stage of Foundation Establishment Realm, Li Qingheng had 3 profound thunders in her thunderpool. She had already used one during the Devil Cultivator battle to cover the group's retreat. Chaiman Difu was by no means weak, but ambushed by 4 cultivators and forced into retreat, the demonic light he unleashed by sacrificing his artifact was indeed formidable. But it can't be saved now. Li Qingheng knew the 2 behind her were not in great shape. If they had to fend off the attack alone, they'd almost certainly be injured. Since thunder was the bane of devil cultivators, she couldn't afford to hold back. She unleashed the profound thunder just in time to shield the group from the incoming demonic light. Boom! The purple-white lightning dropped around them like a waterfall as it collided with the surging black magic light. The impact nearly shattered the entire cave dwelling, and the thunderous noise could no longer be concealed, spreading outward along the flow of water. Boom! A second crash echoed. Li Qingheng took a half step back, but the magic light aimed at the others behind her had already been weakened by 80%. As Li Zijai helped block the remainder, he activated his perception technique and caught sight of a streak of dark golden light burrowing into the ground. What a sophisticated escape spell. As the demonic light finally faded, Li Quantao's water wall pearl glowed faintly, sweeping away the thick miasma within the cave. Yu Yue said hoarsely, "Black Radiance Origin Life Divine Escape. That's a technique from the Golden Feather sect. Chaiman Difu is definitely hiding something." Yu Yue had been shielded by the others and thus had energy to spare for observation. He too had noticed the streak of black golden escape light. The elder, well-versed in heritage and technique, recognized it immediately. Though Li Qingheng and the others were suspicious, they had never planned to pursue him anyway and simply let him escape. "We shouldn't linger, let's go quickly." Li Qingheng swept her sleeve to collect the shattered fragments of the black seal still floating in the air. Then, riding thunder, she soared over the battlefield littered with corpses of slain devil cultivators and led the others into the water vein. The water vein was now saturated with dark radiance. The deaths of several Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators had greatly altered the area. It had widened several-fold from Li Qingheng's first visit. The black spiritual waters surged, occasionally revealing glowing spirit items. Once Li Quantao entered the water, his speed noticeably increased. The wide water vein gave him room to maneuver, and activating the water wall pearl raised their speed by another 50%. The 4 shot through the waterway like arrows. The water vein was deathly silent. The young man felt the atmosphere too oppressive to bear and said, "So many Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators died in this battle, not to mention countless Qi Cultivation Realm cultivators, and those in Embryonic Breathing Realm. Surely this will nurture fertile ground once they're buried in the earth and fallen into the veins of the land and water. Jianbei has grown increasingly barren over the past 500 years. This nourishment could likely support several times more cultivators, and all the storage pouches, Dharma artifacts, and spirit items buried in the soil could sustain generations of rogue cultivators." Yu Yue nodded in agreement as he replied, "As long as the Purple Mansion realm doesn't appear in the world to engage in combat, then yes, the more death, the more spiritual energy will be left behind, and the greater chance of nurturing geniuses. I won't live to see it, but you all might. 100 years from now, Jianbei will be full of famous cultivators." Spiritual energy surged darkly through the water vein, but its bone-piercing cold was blocked by their mana shields. The silence was deafening. Yu Yue glanced at Li Qingheng and said, "It's a pity that Taoist Master Donghua once had a miraculous technique for moving through the Great Void. Once he entered it, no amount of Golden Core Realm cultivators could touch him. That's why they sealed off the Great Void and killed him in the physical world. The Purple Mansion realm intervened to sever the spirit vein. Otherwise, Moongaze Lake would be one of the finest treasure lands today." He chuckled twice and said, "Come to think of it, Donghua destroyed 3 sects in that war. One of them was Hongsu Gate, and its young master was Li Ti. If not for that massacre, you Li Quantao would now be a core descendant of an immortal sect." What? At those words, not only did Li Zijai and Li Qingheng look over in astonishment, Even Li Quantao was stunned. He stared blankly for a moment and opened his mouth to argue, but suddenly recalled many past events and his father's behavior. Realization struck him silent. The Li Tu Yue spoke of was Li Yancheng's father, Li Quantao's own grandfather. A chill slowly spread across Li Quantao's chest as he began to understand the immense leniency Kai Wei and the Azure Pond sect had shown his father in certain matters. So that's how it is. Chapter 814, Zaicheng II. The young man was naturally bold and chivalrous. He was always drawn to heroic figures. How could he not admire a sword immortal like Taoist master Dong Hua and Li Jiangqun, who stood against 10? Li Quantao clearly held great affection for Dong Hua and felt a deep sense of injustice over his betrayal despite such loyalty. Now it felt as if he'd been struck by lightning. When he learned that his own ancestor had been the one to ambush the sword immortal, stole his sword, and died on the run, Li Quantao pressed his lips together. He could not bring himself to utter a word. He simply flew forward in silence, but while the speaker had said it offhandedly, the listener, Li Zijai, took it to heart and thought to himself, there's such a deep connection. Hongsu Gate was founded by the Wei's Li lineage. Yu Yue knows so much about it. Does the Yu family have some hidden ties? And the way this old man keeps provoking Quantao, it might not be so simple. He scrutinized Yu Yue's expression. Indeed, it was complicated. The old man finally broke the silence. Quantao, Li Yancheng doesn't like me. He's probably told you already. Back then, during our internal strife, the coiling Qi Jade True technique really was sent by me. So yes, it was a family power struggle, and I was the one who delivered the poison. But think about it. Who decides whether the Yu family engages in infighting? Every Foundation establishment realm cultivator in the family knew that technique was flawed. They just picked me because I was the youngest and lowest in seniority. They dumped the dirty work on me. He spoke with heartfelt sincerity. Quantao, if you can't see through things, sooner or later you'll be forced to suffer. Your father didn't have time to guide you much before he died. Set aside the pride, observe more, and think more. When his words reached this point, the tone became more telling. Li Quantao's expression turned complicated, and though he wanted to respond, he hesitated. The waters ahead gradually brightened, shifting from pitch black to turquoise blue, the Eastern Sea. As Li Qinghang neared the Eastern Sea, her internal mana surged more wildly. It was clearly affected by the spiritual aura of falling water rising storm. Li Quantao looked slightly uncomfortable. It was evidently his first time near the Eastern Sea. Yu Yue softly explained, Jiangnan is an upper evil spirit storage. You're used to that. This kind of energy will feel unfamiliar and uncomfortable at first. The group followed the water vein forward, which widened rapidly. At this moment, multicolored light flickered in Li Zijai's eyes as he grew more vigilant, peering intently into the depths. The Eastern Sea is in utter chaos now. Though it is not war-torn like Sioux State with its civil war, it's far from peaceful. We must stay cautious. Something's wrong. Although his perception technique was strong, Li Qinghang, augmented by vast sky fierce sparrow, was even more attuned to demonic energy. Her almond-shaped eyes narrowed, and she raised her spear and spoke coldly, fellow cultivator, why not show yourself? Sure enough, as soon as she spoke, the sea before them churned violently. Several figures dressed in wildly different garb appeared. Some wore the outfits of outer sea cultivators, while others were dressed in black smoke-wreathed demonic robes. There was even one in the feathered robe of a Taoist. Their cultivation levels varied, but 7 had appeared in total, and 2 were late-stage Foundation establishment realm. The leader wore a neat, white, ancient-style feathered robe. His aura was refined, with handsome brows and bright eyes. He smiled faintly and said, fellow cultivators, what a fine catch today. The sharp-eyed Yu Yue only needed a quick glance to identify their attire. He quickly sent a mana voice transmission, mostly Eastern Sea and Northern Devil cultivators. The man in front is likely from the Eastern Sea. His turned-back sleeves show a faint pine needle pattern. He probably claims descent from the Green Pine Dao lineage, likely the Chunyi Dao Gate. Someone from Chunyi Dao. Li Zijai remained silent for a breath. It was his first time encountering cultivators from an Eastern Sea sect, and he didn't dare call the man's bluff. He merely said in a low voice, fellow cultivators, we are merely passing through. There's no reason for conflict without cause. The young man at the front let out a laugh and waved his snowy white sleeves, speaking bluntly, don't bother hiding it. This water vein runs straight from Chengshui Tomb. Its branches lie beneath it. You're clearly remnants of the purple gold devil Dao fleeing the collapse. We've been watching for a while now, and you're the third group to come through. The 4 heard this and realized the matter couldn't end peacefully. Li Qinghang drew her spear, purple lightning gathering and erupting in a flash as she swept it at the young man before her, coldly declaring, go. Boom. The young man glanced at her in surprise, white light rising in his palm. He pushed his palm forward and a stream of luminous moonlight burst forth, forming a radiant arc that blocked the thunder. He was much more polite as he said gently, I am Zaicheng, a rogue cultivator from the Eastern Sea. Since the fairy cultivates profound thunder, you must not be a devil cultivator. Why associate with these devilish types? When he saw that Li Qinghang's thunder was bright and pure, Zai Cheng judged that she couldn't be from the Miao lineage, and thus not one of the Southern Sea Devil cultivators. She must be an upright inland cultivator, so he held back slightly. Though Zai Cheng had held back on purpose, Li Qinghang assumed it was a life-and-death duel and didn't hold anything back. Her purple lightning pierced forward, scattering the light in his hand and numbing his arm. He couldn't help but cry out, "Impressive lightning. I underestimated you, fairy." The surrounding Eastern Sea cultivators surged forward to chase the others. Yu Yue released his Violetrid cauldron, sending out several purple fire dragons to block their spells. Most of these cultivators cultivated with a gray-white energy, similar to that of Qujai, which could neutralize mana and break apart spells. Though their clothing differed, a closer look revealed that they were skilled at coordinating among them. Li Qinghang had already exchanged several blows with Zai Cheng. The mana in his hands was bright as pure and luminous moonlight. Though this was her first time seeing it, something about it felt deeply familiar. She thought, it must be of the supreme yin element. This was her first duel with a cultivator of the supreme yin element. She felt his mana to be both extremely yin and luminously pure. It was not forceful, yet unyielding, like a gleaming, icy stone. In the past, her opponents were either devil cultivators or orthodox immortals. Their mana was easily overwhelmed by her lightning. Only Miao Quan of the Southern Sea, who also wielded lightning, had held his own. Against all others, even those stronger than her, Li Qinghang was always on the offensive. But Zai Cheng, with his pure supreme yin mana, often responded unpredictably and deflected her attacks more often than not. Though slightly inferior in cultivation, he was calm and composed in his responses. While she pondered in silence, Zai Cheng was growing alarmed. He knew his own limits. His technique, based on supreme yin and pure yin qi, was already a top-tier method. He had never encountered a worthy opponent in his life, yet this woman's thunder techniques were truly fearsome. To make matters worse, she was growing more powerful with each exchange. Zai Cheng secretly began to wonder, could she be a direct heir of the 3 sects and 7 gates? But I've never heard of any of them producing a renowned thunder cultivator. The duel between the two continued with no clear victor, but Yu Yue and the others were starting to falter. The old man was facing 3 opponents alone, one of whom was a late-stage Foundation Establishment realm cultivator. His hair and beard flared wildly as he fought fiercely. Li Zijai was faring slightly better as he held off 2 devil cultivators, but Li Quanta was surrounded by 2 others and found himself in grave danger. He was already coughing blood and faltering. He looked ready to collapse. Chapter 815, Shameful Matter. Barely a quarter hour had passed, and Li Qinghang and Zai Cheng had begun to fight in earnest. Lightning and moonlight clashed in the sea, sending waves crashing endlessly. At the same time, Li Quantao's face was ashen as he teetered on the brink of collapse. He had been fighting non-stop and was long exhausted. He had been besieged by 2 devil cultivators earlier and had already sustained injuries. His condition worsened with each clash, and a single moment of distraction led to a heavy palm strike to the chest. Hiss. His torn and ragged Dharma robe had long lost most of its protective light. Yet it managed to hold together enough to keep him from sinking into the sea immediately, but the pale mist still eroded his flesh, exposing stark white bone beneath. Li Zijai kept glancing over and saw Quan Ao taking hit after hit from spells, soaking his robes in blood. Zijai was just about to break formation and help when he spotted several more figures flying in from the distance. "My lord, forgive our tardiness." Li Zijai's heart sank as he saw 2 more cultivators riding the wind toward them. The white-haired leader looked quite formidable, reinforcements for the enemy. Sigh, fear surged in Zijai's heart. He heard Yu Yue's heavy sigh nearby as the old man slowly raised his hand, a dense purple firelight welling up on his palm. Zijai remembered that when Yu Yue fought Chuoba Changyuan, he had dug a talisman from the palm of his hand. That wound had yet to heal. Now the old man drew a jade knife again and stabbed it into his other palm. Ting! A crisp, ringing sound rang out, and a radiant, snow-white talisman leaped out from his palm. Haya! The elder shouted fiercely as 2 purple flame dragons burst forth from the talisman. The dazzling and radiant dragons were covered in glowing runes. The elder instantly aged several years, but instead of directing the fire dragons forward, he sent them to either flank. The fire dragons intercepted the devil cultivators, attacking Zijai and Quan Tao. The old man swallowed a pill and his face flushed red. He raised his great cauldron high, unleashing waves of violet-red flame. "Go!" He shouted the command, and beside him Li Qinghang seized the moment and spat out her final profound thunder. A blinding white light ignited instantly. Boom! A circular blast of white light erupted in the sea. The thunder cracked like a mountain collapsing, stirring violent waves and transforming scalding steam into a dense purple lightning cascade that blinded everyone. "Go!" Li Zijai quickly scooped up Li Quantao and shot through the water without hesitation, leaving the others behind as he flew straight for the distance without looking back. Li Qinghong had been closely monitoring the situation. The last profound thunder had allowed her to force a retreat, so she also pulled back. The cyan sparrow plume on her body lit up with blue-white brilliance, enhancing her purple lightning as she vanished into the sky. "My lord." Zai Chang emerged from the purple-white thunderlight and coughed twice, spitting a bit of blood into his palm. His eyes shone brightly as he gazed at the distant horizon where Li Qinghong had vanished on a bolt of lightning. He sighed, "What exquisite profound thunder. It must be the Tao of thunder steering and cloud dwelling. My lord." "Shall we pursue them?" "Pursue?" Zai Chang chuckled and said, "Could we even catch them?" He flew above the sea's surface, looking into the far distance as he murmured, "Jiangnan, after all, was once home to an immortal mansion. Many righteous lineages still dwell there." His subordinate followed his gaze and asked, "My lord, haven't you heard that Jiangnan no longer has any supreme Yin Dao lineage, even though it was where the Moonlight Origin Mansion once stood?" "Ha ha ha." Zai Chang laughed warmly and replied, "Do you know why that is?" When he saw his subordinate silently shake his head, Zai Chang continued with a grin, "Jiangnan was once the land of the Moonlight Origin Mansion. Their techniques were deeply hidden but not entirely lost. Even Donghua passed down several supreme Yin methods, yet do you know why they can't be cultivated anymore?" He paused, then smiled widely. "Guess what the Moonlight Origin Mansion used to cultivate supreme?" The subordinate began to sense something amiss and cautiously replied, "Could it be something rare like constant pure yin qi or essence of origin light?" "Wrong." Zai Chang laughed aloud and shook his head. He ground his teeth as he said, "They used the damn supreme yin moonlight." "Supreme yin moonlight." The subordinate was stunned into silence. Zai Chang muttered, "They used supreme yin moonlight for qi cultivation. How extravagant. How absurdly extravagant. That would be like the bright yang using radiant sky stones, or azure manifestation using the primordial vault secret to train. Once the moon mansion vanished, how could any of their techniques still be practiced? If I could just obtain even a portion of supreme yin moonlight." Zai Chang whispered, "The purple mansion realm would be within reach. That's the purple mansion realm." He sighed, then quickly refocused and ordered, "Bring that old man here for questioning." "That violet flame of his is interesting." Li Zijai carried Li Quantao as they fled. Quantao's consciousness had begun to blur. His eyes were filled with a blood-red haze, and his arms hung limply over Li Zijai's shoulders as he stared blankly ahead. When the purple flames and thunderlight had intertwined, he had been snatched away by Li Zijai, but an old man's voice had echoed faintly in his ears. It wasn't loud, but it left him stunned. "Lian Cheng, that heartless bastard, never dared tell you the truth. My younger sister studied alchemy at his place but secretly left you behind. You should have called me your uncle. Li Zijai may be grateful to you, but he's suspicious by nature. The Ning father and son he's allied with are wolves, and Qingdu's branch of the Li family may be disloyal to the upper sect. Drawing close to the Li of Qingdu isn't wise. You should have distanced yourself. Staying out of gratitude will only drag you down. Protect yourself while you still can." The elder's voice was hoarse. Quantao coughed up bloody phlegm as he mulled the words over. Thunder still boomed in the distance, but suddenly something clicked in his mind. He hesitated during the devil plague and refused to act decisively, not to harm me, but to get at Brother Zhai, to sever my link to the Qingdu Li family. He had never seen his mother growing up and had asked his father and brother many times, but never received answers. Now, knowing the truth, he realized it had been a shameful matter. No wonder they never told me. No wonder I could never get a straight answer, thought Li Quantao. Yu Yue's attitude had always felt strange, but now he understood why. When Chuoba Changyuan breached Beixiang Valley, Yu Yue was supposed to flee to Lake Xi'an, yet he had crossed mountains to find Li Zijai. In truth, it was probably to see him. Grief and resentment surged in him, and with it, a deep, sudden doubt for everything his father and brother had ever taught him, so much for the Yu family's loyalty and righteousness. They're just a bunch of selfish cowards. What if my father was just guilty? He hid the truth until death, and perhaps even turned it back on me to keep me from finding out. He lay silently in Li Zijai's arms, his heart a swirling storm of emotion. They flew for almost a full 15 minutes before he slowly began to recover. Then he heard Li Zijai worriedly say, "Quick, take a pill. Can you still hold on?" "I can hold on." Li Quantao swallowed the blood in his throat. His eyes opened slowly, hands stained with blood, and he murmured, "I can hold on." Chapter 816, The Fall of Mount Yan Pass. Mount Yan Pass. Dense demonic qi surged across the ruins. The ground was dim and soaked in blood. The once radiant formation was now in tatters, with only faint glimmers of formation lines flickering intermittently on exposed stones. The reek of blood filled the air, demonic smoke soared into the sky, and not a trace of immortal light could be seen. Cries of battle and the clash of Dharma artifacts echoed across the land. Thick black clouds spread for nearly 50 kilometers as it rushed southward. Zhao Tingui sped through the air atop a small golden cloud, a white jade lantern in his hands radiating multicolored light. Each time the golden cloud tried to accelerate, streaks of violet light shot out from the layers of demonic clouds. The white jade lantern in his hand would immediately emit colorful rays to block them, leaving behind crackling and shattering sounds. Zhao Tinggui's Dharma artifact was indeed impressive to shield him from the violet rays. But even as those rays were shattered, a wave of white radiance would fall on him. Just as the golden light beneath his feet would start to rise, it would be dimmed again by the white glow. Boom! The streaks of violet light seemed never-ending, leaving Zhao Tinggui's face pale and ashen. His refined junior martial brother, dressed in brocade robes, remained calm and composed even in danger as he said, "Senior brother, this Murong Gong is overwhelmingly powerful. I fear we are no match for him." Zhao Tinggui's expression was grim, and his heart had long since turned cold. His usually polished and smiling face was now slightly pale, with traces of blood at the corners of his lips. Tang Shedu, Tang Shedu. Zhao Tingui knew Tu Longjian had broken through and expected difficult times ahead for him, but he truly hadn't imagined that Tang Shedu would defect from the Azure Pond sect overnight and join the enemy, ruining the entire strategic situation. The defection had caused the front lines to collapse like a landslide. Li Xuanfeng was exceptionally strong, so he might yet escape with his life, but the rest likely had no more than 1 in 10 chance of survival. Zhao Tinggui's heart turned to ice. Yu Su is useless too, he thought. Yu Su's forces had been stationed close to Mount Yan Pass, yet he had only advanced a few hundred kilometers and was already calling for reinforcements. At the time, Zhao Tingui hadn't known of Tang Shedu's betrayal, so he had felt uneasy and sent a few men over. In the end, none returned. He had been burning with anxiety as he waited within the pass. But when he saw 5 spiritual winds surging into the sky and getting torn apart by demonic hands, Zhao Tingui could only mutter in a daze, Yu Su is most likely dead. The Yu family's long wind cage was well known for having 5 wind fiends held within it. Zhao Tingui had personally seen it years ago, but judging from the current state of things, even the long wind cage had been dismantled. How could Yu Su still be alive? Then the Murong family's Murong Gong suddenly led a charge straight through the pass. Since Mount Yan Pass had been emptied, Zhao Tingui had only 5 Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators at his side. What could they possibly use to stop the enemy? What could they even use to defend? He had no idea what agreements the Purple Mansion Realm cultivators had made, but Devil cultivators had even stirred up chaos inside Mount Yan Pass. The entire defense line had collapsed in less than 15 minutes. Zhao Tingui hadn't even had time to gather all his junior brothers before being engulfed in the billowing demonic smoke. Zhao Tinggui's strength was above average, but he came from humble origins. Though the Ning family had temporarily granted him a few Dharma artifacts, his techniques and spell arts couldn't compare to those of the Murong family's direct descendants. After holding on for a few dozen exchanges, he could no longer withstand the onslaught and was forced to retreat. If not for his few Dharma artifacts, Zhao Tingui would have long since fallen to the Devil cultivators. He and his junior brother Lin Wuning had fled all the way here, while Murong Gong followed at a steady pace, seemingly unsatisfied with his spoils and hoping to lure out more prey. Zhao Tinggui's heart was frozen with dread as his junior brother Lin Wuning murmured again, "Senior brother, this demonic cultivator is getting faster. He's likely nearing the riverbank. Since he sees no more prey surfacing, he's getting ready to close the net." Of course he understood Lin Wuning. Murong Gong had just shattered the great formation at Mount Yan Pass with his own strength. Though he had used a Dharma artifact, the power it lent him was very real. The two of them likely had no way to escape. Boom! Another bright purple ray streaked toward them. The white jade lantern in Zhao Tinggui's hand flared with dense, hair-thin streaks of multicolored light. Zhao Tingui staggered from the impact, the wind beneath his feet nearly dissipating. Murong Gong had cultivated some unknown art, and was perhaps even wielding a Water Mansion Dharma artifact. Every time his spell struck, a dispersing force would follow, preventing the Dharma artifact beneath Zhao Tinggui's feet from ever fully activating. After suffering 2 more strikes, Zhao Tingui suddenly fell silent. He stared deeply into the fog of demonic mist ahead and spoke quietly, "Wuning, we've come this far, and it's only Murong Gong chasing us. I'll use the white blossom lamp to block this demon for you. Take the fortune-rising cloud and flee south on your own." Lin Wuning was stunned. Countless feelings churned in his heart, and though he wanted to protest, the words stayed lodged in his chest. Lin Wuning hadn't thought much of his senior brother earlier. Zhao Tingui came from poverty, and though it was a miracle he'd reached his current status, he was always gathering allies and currying favor. Lin Wuning always thought him overly concerned with appearances and reputation. He was altogether too calculating. As the son of a peak master, Lin Wuning carried a natural pride in his bearing. He had always found Zhao Tinggui's demeanor petty and unbecoming of greatness and had looked down on him. But over time, he came to realize that Zhao Tingui, though constantly scheming and striving, genuinely cared for the disciples of his own peak. So over time, Lin Wuning gradually let go of his resentment. He used to scorn how Zhao Tingui scurried about for petty gains, seemingly without dignity. But now, when he heard these words, his face flushed red and he said weakly, "Senior brother, your future still holds promise. Let me stay behind and cover you instead." Nonsense. Zhao Tingui didn't have the energy to manage his tone. He scanned the mist for a path to escape, while Lin Wuning shrank back hesitantly. Zhao Tingui murmured, I gave my word to Li Zijun, promised Li Qingheng, and in the end Mount Yan Pass fell within 15 minutes. I couldn't even find my own brothers, let alone Li Yuexiang. Lin Wuning could only reply, how can this be your fault, senior brother? I know Li Yuexiang is Li Zijai's sister, and Li Xunfeng is terrifying, Li Qingheng is strong too, but how many of them will even make it back? There's no need to. Zhao Tingui shook his head and replied quietly, I shouldn't have sent anyone out. Mount Yan Pass fell in 15 minutes and the majority of the blame is mine. Every major clan north of the Yue River had cultivators within the pass. If I survive alone, I'll be condemned by all and hated by everyone. Zhao Tingui said quietly, what face do I have left to return across the river? Seeing his junior brother still bewildered, he had to explain, I've long known this day would come. I knew my end would not be good ever since the sect sent me with no backing or support to rally cultivators. They even stripped me of every Foundation Establishment realm cultivator under my command. Lin Wuning looked at him, somewhat dazed, as Zhao Tingui simply said, in the past, the Kai family didn't care about anyone's opinion, but now they've grown weak and can no longer act so domineering. The pass falling in 15 minutes, someone will have to take the blame for such a crushing defeat, from top to bottom, first to last. Lin Wuning seemed to slowly understand. Zhao Tingui placed the golden cloud beneath his feet and channeled all his mana into the white jade-like lamp. He looked at his junior brother twice and finally said, you often said I was overly scheming and ambitious. I know it's hard for you to understand. But before I came up the mountain, I was just a farmer's son carrying nothing but a sickle. If I didn't fight for every inch, I wouldn't have survived. Later I realized that if I didn't scramble, I'd die. But if I scrambled too hard, I'd still die. But I realized that too late. All the cultivators thought I had the Ning family backing me, but they were wrong. I had nothing behind me. My fate was sealed long ago. It was only a matter of time before I was sacrificed. He poured his mana into the cloud and sent Lin Wuning southward, letting out a heavy yet gentle sigh as he muttered, I've always known you looked down on me, but that won't stop me from saving you. Master brought me up the mountain and taught me to cherish my junior brothers, and I've never forgotten that. Radiant white light burst from his body as the Dharma artifact in his hand shone brilliantly, blocking the sweeping violet light. Blood streamed from all 7 orifices as he turned to face his opponent. The openly mocking look on Murong Gong's face gave way to seriousness. Lin Wuning bowed his head and charged out of the dark clouds. The flying cloud beneath his feet moved faster and faster, plunging him deep into the heavy mist. Below him was a sea of demonic haze and strewn corpses. After flying for several kilometers, the demonic aura finally began to fade. He flew blindly through the wind until he saw the roaring Great River. It was only after crossing it and heading further south that the terror in his heart gradually subsided. His senior brother's words echoed within him for a long while. He was grateful, but also overwhelmed and at a loss. Further south is Moongaze Lake. After a brief moment of hesitation, Lin Wuning didn't land or issue any warnings, fearing to waste precious time. He instead veered toward Mount Bianyan and calculated silently. If he could bring reinforcements back in time, perhaps he could still save Zhao Tingui. Chapter 817, The Fall of Mount Yan Pass II, Mount Qingdu. The coldest days had passed and the heavy snow began to ease. Though the lake's ice had yet to thaw, it had grown much thinner. Li Xuanxuan finished drawing a talisman, folded his sleeves, and strolled through the mountain. He had heard that the northern situation was growing ever more chaotic, but news from their own people was growing scarcer by the day. Li Xiaowei had become busy, and Li Ziming remained in seclusion with no resolution regarding that child's matter. Li Xuanxuan deliberated for a moment, then decided to find Li Xiaowei, only to run into him at the temple gate. The young man wore a solemn expression, and now stood a full head taller than Li Xuanxuan. Golden light flowed through his eyes and his face was filled with thought. His black cloak was dusted with slowly melting snow. Huinger, how did it go? Asked Li Xuanxuan. Li Xiaowei bowed slightly and answered, a devil cultivator just slipped into Mount Yue and conspired with some remnants of the Western Tan lineage to steal spirit patties and flee. It has been dealt with. I came right away to report to you. Li Xuanxuan nodded. Li Xiaowei raised his hand to shut the temple doors and activated the isolation formation. Only then did worry show on his face as he spoke softly. My trusted men stationed along the northern river have just returned. They reported rampant demonic smoke spreading southward. It's spreading so much that even Mount Yan Pass was covered in it. It's likely been breached by devil cultivators. The situation looks grim. Li Xuanxuan let out a long sigh and asked quietly, have there been any signs from the family's life jades? Li Xuanxuan was referring to the life jades the core members of the Li family all nurtured in the ancestral hall. If any faced life or death danger within 5 to 10 years, the life jade would show signs. Li Xiaowei shook his head and reminded him, Zhangbei is in complete chaos. Even the Maha of the Purple Mansion realm can't divine anything. How could mere life jades show anything? Ever since they entered Su state, their life jades have dulled and no longer reveal their state. Li Xuanxuan could only nod. After hesitating a moment, he braced for the worst and asked, if Mount Yan Pass has truly fallen, and the devil cultivators push all the way to Su state's border, how should we respond? We can only watch how the Azure Pond sect reacts. Li Xiaowei had clearly considered this and said bluntly, if their response is quick enough, we might be able to stop the devil cultivators at the Great River, rebuild a defensive line, and reorganize cultivators to resist. But if not, his golden eyes flicked northward as he said, one word at a time, then we can only defend at the northern shore of Moongaze Lake, where the Fei family will be the front line. Li Xuanxuan had long sensed it would come to this, but still sighed as he replied, earlier, Zijin sent so many family cultivators and spoke of sharing weal and woe. I underestimated it then, but now it seems the devil cultivators are right on our doorstep. Li Xiaowei had spoken of the Fei family with such weight, it was clearly a hint. He thought to himself, if it truly comes to that, and we lose one more battle, we might lose the entire northern shore. If the Azure Pond sect withdraws again, their own domain would become the front lines of a north-south struggle. What then? Win or lose, how would the million mortals living here be dealt with? The Li family had managed the southern shores of Moongaze Lake for years. If they lost it, where else could they go? Could they really abandon tens of thousands of acres of spirit fields and several spirit veins to flee to the eastern sea? If it comes to that, how will I ever face my uncles and elders? The elder raised his tea but didn't drink, his mind preoccupied with the safety of the younger generation. Meanwhile, Li Xiaowei looked north and said softly, we must prepare. I've already sent several loyal men to investigate further. The white ape had only returned to the family with Li Qingliu a few days ago, but Li Xiaowei didn't plan to send him to scout. Though the ape was strong and could move freely, he had just broken through to the Foundation establishment realm. If the white ape was caught by devil cultivators in the north, they'd lose a critical asset. Li Xiaowei stared solemnly into the distance, golden light flickering in his eyes, and thought to himself, if things really come to this, I can't delay any longer. I'll take some pills and enter closed-door cultivation to break through to Foundation establishment realm first. The Li family understood well that breaking through from Qi cultivation realm to Foundation establishment realm wasn't a race. Ideally, they would practice spells until around age 40 or 50 before advancing. At the latest, they would advance no later than 60. Li Xiaowei cultivated the Radiant Essence Scripture, the highest 5th-grade technique in the Li family's history. He was also extraordinary from birth. He had been inherently attuned to bright yang, so his cultivation speed should have been astonishing. However, to avoid attracting undue attention with overly dazzling progress, and to ensure steady cultivation by balancing both spell arts and halberd technique, he had deliberately prioritized building a solid foundation rather than advancing too quickly. That was why his pace had slowed. Yet even with this restraint, his cultivation still surpassed Li Ziming in his youth. He had already reached the mid-stage of the Qi cultivation realm before the age of 20. Li Xiaowei's gaze flickered with resolution, but just then someone approached and handed him a small letter. He unlocked it with a unique method, glanced over it briefly, waved the messenger away and said softly, there's news from Yu Fuzi of Chengxiao Gate. Chapter 818, Crimson Voyager I. Li Xiaowei unfolded the small letter in his hand, read through it line by line, and handed it to Li Xuanxuan. The old man took it and read carefully, stroking his beard as he recited, Yu Fuzi, birth name Wang Fu, hails from Jiankan Prefecture of Wu State. He has 3 disciples, one of whom is a Foundation establishment realm cultivator. That disciple is now nearly 100 years old. The disciple's master is Zhou Han of Chengxiao Gate, who has been in closed-door cultivation for many years and has not emerged. Chengxiao Gate had been established fairly recently. Its founder, Cheng Ziozi, was still alive and in his prime, imbuing the sect with the vigor of a newly risen force. Everyone has a Taoist title, and master-disciple relationships often lacked any blood ties. Li Xuanxuan read halfway through and suddenly felt a headache coming on. He muttered to himself, Wu State, surname Wang. There shouldn't be many powerful families. Li Xiaowei nodded and replied, Wu State once had the Wang family, a top-tier family, though that was said to be 1,000 years ago. Later, chaos broke out in Jiangnan, and the Wang family declined, but they had been so prominent back then that many powerful cultivators in Wu State still bear the surname Wang. Jiangnan had long since been split between Wu and Yue, unlike the north where dynasties changed rapidly. The great cultivation sects and aristocratic clans had completely supplanted the imperial families of both nations. Wu and Yue had become mere geographic terms, with no real national rivalry remaining. Jiangnan's strict information blockade had resulted in only a few century-old families keeping secret records. Thus, even the names of southern dynasties from 1,000 years ago had faded from history. Li Xuanxuan continued reading, This person cultivates the lesser yang attribute, but his immortal foundation is unknown. He possesses 3 Dharma artifacts, a bell, a sword, and a pearl. They all have great power. He has remained at the late stage of Foundation Establishment realm for many years and is exceptionally strong. He recently emerged from his cave dwelling after obtaining a treasure, and is now stationed at the Eastern Sea's Zaifeng Island on behalf of Changxiao Gate, leading its cultivators to guard against an attack from the Hangzhou Dao Gate. There had long been tension between Changxiao Gate and the Hangzhou Dao Gate, and their conflicts had grown increasingly intense in recent years. Now that fighting had become likely, the powerful Yu Fuzi had been deployed. After reading, Li Xuanxuan furrowed his old brows and muttered, "This matter seems difficult. King Heng and the others still haven't found a place to settle. Who knows if they're wounded? This Yu Fuzi looks troublesome. He has a master and disciples with a web of complicated ties. Let's wait for now." Li Xiaowei nodded in reply. "Since we've received word and major changes have occurred on the front, we should have Uncle come out of seclusion." After all, Li Ziming had only been in seclusion for a month. It was barely long enough to get settled for a Foundation Establishment realm cultivator. However, if the situation hadn't become urgent, Li Xiaowei wouldn't have disturbed him. Once Li Xuanxuan nodded, he sent someone over. After a short wait, Li Ziming indeed descended on the wind before the hall. The radiant light around him had yet to fade, bringing a warm breeze into the hall. He asked directly, "How are things at home?" Li Xuanxuan took his hand and began explaining the northern disturbances, then passed him the letter. After reading it, Li Ziming replied with mixed feelings, "The news from the north is so dire. We may need to wait longer to learn the full picture. Has Xiaowei found out anything about Zaifeng Island and any intelligence on Hangzhou Dao Gate?" Since the radiant sky stone concerned Li Ziming's Dao to the Purple Mansion realm, he took it very seriously. Li Xiaowei had come prepared and answered softly, "Changxiao Gate's Zaifeng Island lies over 500 kilometers north of Spleetered Island. The island itself is decent, with a chain of scattered reefs forming a powerful grand formation. It's well defended. As for Hangzhou Dao Gate's Tianzhu Island, it lies over 250 kilometers east of Spleetered Island. It's held by Bai Yuzhuang, a late Foundation Establishment realm cultivator. The two sects have already spilled blood multiple times, and relations are quite strained." Li Ziming nodded quietly. It was the perfect time to get involved, but they couldn't spare the manpower. He could only say comfortingly, "It's fine. The man just left for the Eastern Sea, so it'll be at least 4 or 5 years before he can be reassigned. Let's wait for news from the north first." Noise rose outside the grand formation. And Siwei quickly stepped forward and said in a low voice, "Your Highness, Master Monk King Heng has returned. Bring him up immediately," said Li Xuanxuan. Li Xuanxuan grew excited and strode out in a few quick steps. Sure enough, the narrow-eyed monk was standing before the hall. The monk's aura appeared stable. Though his robes were disheveled, the bronze meditation staff in his hand stood firm, and his expression held a hint of guilt. Elder Xuanxuan. He bowed his head and said softly, "Changshui tomb was thrown into chaos. Tang Shedu rebelled. The immortal Dao suffered greatly." As he recounted everything in detail, the 3 men listened in heavy silence. King Heng, once a defender of Mount Yan Pass, had also been sent to Changshui tomb with the other cultivators. Always low profile, he had kept his true strength hidden and was assigned alone under Yu Su. According to the Azure Pond sect's deployment orders, Yu Su's group had arrived slightly later than Li Xuanfeng and Tang Shedu. They had moved north from Mount Yan Pass and were expected to face the weakest devil cultivators. They were supposedly the easiest front. Thus, though the cultivators were the weakest of the 3 groups, they felt no tension as they marched north in high spirits. This lasted until they witnessed an immortal and a devil cultivator in a chase heading east. The two were unremarkable, except for the Dharma artifact in the devil cultivator's hand. It shone brilliantly with an ancient, majestic aura, which clearly meant that it was no ordinary item. Its power was great, and the devil cultivator was chasing the immortal cultivator across the land. Yu Su took one look and immediately stopped in his tracks. He was already infamous within the sect for his greed. He had even earned the nickname Brocade Darkmouse because of his personality, unique immortal foundation, and Dharma artifact. Though he claimed he was going to help, it was clearly greed at work. The group had no choice but to adjust course slightly and fly a few more kilometers. Unexpectedly, the devil cultivators seemed to have predicted their path and had set a trap, ambushing them on the way. That Yu Su. He was surrounded by 5 devil heads. The demonic smoke was thick, and the cultivators scattered in all directions. In the end, no one was willing to help him. The always inconspicuous King Heng had roamed far and wide for years, so he was never short on survival techniques. Sensing danger early, he had fled eastward through the demonic smoke and eventually reached Baixiang Valley. I had just reached Baixiang Valley when the pursuers arrived. I also saw Yuan Haiyuan on the way. He and several Yuan family members were swallowed by the demonic smoke, and he was forced to flee alone. I happened upon him weeping softly. Li Xuanxuan asked softly, "So you weren't inside the pass? Has Mount Yan Pass fallen?" "I'm quite certain that it has fallen." replied King Heng. Chapter 819, Crimson Voyager II. King Heng had served alone under Yusu, without any other members of the Li family nearby, so he couldn't confirm Mount Yan Pass's exact status. Li Ziming stayed silent for a moment before finally speaking. We can't head north into the demonic mist. All we can do is await word. The two elders are powerful and should be safe, but I fear for Zijai and Wushao. Brother Zijai was injured earlier, and he could be in danger now. King Heng thought for a moment, then gently consoled. Although Mount Yan Pass has fallen, the situation at Changshui Tomb may not be as bad as it seems. As a Buddhist cultivator of an ancient lineage, King Heng had clearly deduced Tang Shedu's intentions from the clues at hand. He explained, Tang Shedu simply wishes to join the Northern Buddhists. The North-South conflict is a matter of Dao lineage and great destiny. With his deep foundations and high status, he may become the next merciful one if he joins the North. This means his future prospects are boundless. If he intends to undertake the karmic transformation ritual, he would surely submit under a Maha. Upon success, the heavens would shine with divine light, lotus flowers would descend, and all of us who cultivate the Buddhist Tao would sense it. He shook his head and said, I was close enough to Changshui Tomb, yet I sensed nothing, not even upon reaching Beixiang Valley. Something must have gone wrong. Perhaps the ritual was interrupted by someone in the Purple Mansion realm. The expressions of the Li family members eased slightly at that, but Li Xuanxuan remained uneasy and began asking for details. Li Ziming sat quietly at the table, folding Yu Fuzi's intelligence with care. Outside, the snowfall had lessened. A man rushed up from below, hurried and anxious, arriving quickly before the hall. His face pale, he spoke quickly, Your Highness, Lady Su is in labor. Li Xiaowei's gaze snapped to him. He strode swiftly out of the main hall and leaped onto the wind. He pierced through the clouds and across the frozen lake, landing directly in front of the central hall. Though anxious, he masked it well. He strode through the corridor and neared the palace gate of the rear hall. The scent of blood had already reached his nose. Li Xiaowei's ears twitched at the sound of panicked cries. His expression darkened as he pushed the door open, and his breath caught. A suffocating wave of blood-tinged heat rushed out, mingled with an odd fragrance that nearly induced nausea. The lamps had all toppled, and the floor was dotted with glimmering beads of blood that gleamed gold under the flickering light. Two maidservants had backed into a corner, sobbing as they clung to each other. When he followed the trail of blood, he finally saw Su Peiyu. The woman lay motionless on the couch, lit by dim, yellow light. Blood dripped slowly down her thighs, and a newborn lay on the floor. Its entire body was wrinkled, and its golden eyes were already open. Its tiny hands clutched Su Peiyu's thigh tightly, tongue extended to lap up the dripping blood. Its lips moved slightly, revealing a faint white gleam. The jade court guards nearby were frozen beside the child. Their hands bore fresh bite wounds, and they were unsure whether to act or retreat. The moment they saw him enter, they fell to their knees with a thud. Your subordinate was incompetent. Li Xiaowei paid them no mind. An old, lingering premonition was being confirmed in his heart, leaving him speechless. This child was supposed to be his eldest son. Li Xiaowei had even chosen his name in advance, naming him Li Jiangao. His heart sank step by step as he stepped over the blood and grabbed the child by the neck. But the moment he lifted him, Li Jiangao shrieked, opening his unnaturally wide mouth to reveal sharp, interlocking white teeth, and tried to bite him. But how could he possibly harm Li Xiaowei? A casual flick and a surge of mana stifled any attempts to bite from Li Jiangao. His overly large eyes stared at him with a dull, mindless hunger. Li Xiaowei swept his spiritual sense across the child. The strange bloodline connection told him clearly that this child was neither a reincarnated soul nor the product of any dark sorcery. He's simply not human. His gaze fell upon Lady Su's young face. Her eyes had already lost their light as they stared blankly at the ceiling. A thin veil lay unmoving over her lips. The hall was oppressively silent. None of the attendants dared speak or move. All knelt together, watching as Li Xiaowei slowly walked up to the bed and pulled the veil away. He wound the veil around an arm as he slowly lifted the child to eye level and examined it carefully. One hand supported the child from beneath, the other clutched its throat. His fingers pressed against the tiny neck of Li Jiangao without moving. His eyes narrowed as he felt the faint pulsing of blood beneath the skin. The child seemed to sense the threat of death. Its golden eyes widened into orbs, glaring back with fierce, unblinking hostility. Minghuang, Minghuang. As father and son stared each other down, Li Xiaowei's grip slowly tightened. Li Xuanxuan rushed forward, calling twice urgently, but an unfazed Li Xiaowei casually unwound the veil around his wrist and wrapped the child. It was less wrapping and more binding. His eyes returned to Lady Su's face. When Li Xuanxuan finally looked away from the blood-stained floor to him, Li Xiaowei held the child and said heavily, "A curse upon our house." The family had closely monitored Lady Su's condition. Her belly had suddenly expanded in her first month, then gone still, before seeming to resume normal growth like any infant. Medicines had been administered to nurse her health back, and all had seemed to improve. No one had expected her to go into labor without warning in the third month. King Heng, whom they planned to contact, had disappeared, and though he had returned, it was too late. The woman had perished, her face pallid with a bluish tint. Li Xuanxuan stood dazed, only able to ask, how could this happen? Li Ziming and King Heng followed behind him. As Li Xiaowei handed over Li Jiangao, the child bared its sharp white teeth and twisted, trying to bite Li Xuanxuan's wrist, but Li Xiaowei had bound him tightly so he couldn't turn over. Li Xuanxuan recoiled at the sight of those jagged teeth and golden eyes. He turned to King Heng, voice trembling with disbelief, "Master Monk." This. King Heng's eyes flickered as well. He lowered his gaze and chanted several Buddhist verses before reaching out to take Li Jiangao, examining him closely before responding quietly, "Not quite human. He was affected by your highness. Bright Yang is not an ordinary force, it's far more volatile than the 12 essences, and with the prior karmic entanglements, he was inevitably altered." Li Xiaowei was already lifting the woman's corpse in his arms. He whispered an apology and left ahead of them. The thick, suffocating scent of blood still hung in the air, mixed with a nauseating sweet fragrance. Li Ziming took 2 steps back. King Heng lowered his voice and said solemnly, "In our Buddhist scriptures, the one who attained enlightenment through Bright Yang, the undefeated king of brightness, had 4 wives in his lay life. He had 5 sons among all his concubines, all enemies of the Dharma, sweeping wind and light in their wake, killing countless. They were 5 demon heads. As for the Wei's Li bloodline, generation after generation bore abnormalities. There were consorts dying violently, children noble while mothers perished. That too may be linked to Bright Yang." Chapter 820, The Northern Line I. The two were silent for a moment before another person came up. Li Xuanxuan tilted his ear and heard Siwei quietly say, "My lord, Lady An is with child." He was referring to one of Li Xiaowei's concubines. A few months ago, such news would have been cause for celebration, but now Li Xuanxuan's heart sank. Still, the elder forced a smile and said reassuringly, "Go on then, take her to Qingdu and have the master monk examine her." King Heng listened silently at the side while Li Ziming stood with his hands behind his back, eyes fixed on him. Only after Siwei had left did Li Ziming ask softly, "Master monk, is there any way to resolve this?" King Heng could only shut his eyes and shake his head, replying, "Let us examine the lady first." The 3 rode the wind down to the peak and took their seats in the hall. Li Ziming held his tea, thinking for a few moments while Lady An entered from outside. She had a rounder face and looked gentler than Lady Su. She stepped forward nervously, about to bow, but was quickly helped up by Li Xuanxuan. King Heng glanced over her, took her pulse, and began forming hand seals. He examined her twice with Dharma light, confirming there were no signs of reincarnation within her. He dared not divine further. Instead, he fell into thought, recalling the appearance of Lady Su before her death. After a moment of silent consideration, he gave a slight nod. Li Ziming remained motionless, still staring into his tea. Li Xuanxuan spoke hoarsely, "You may go." "Yes, sir," Lady An answered softly and stepped out of the hall. Only then did the narrow-eyed monk speak in a low voice. "I examined her carefully. The lady's condition is not severe. Had I been within the family earlier, using Buddhist secret techniques to nourish life and preserve fate, I might have been able to save Lady Su." Li Xuanxuan let out a slow breath of relief. Li Ziming finally raised his brow and asked with emphasis, "Is there any hope for the child? Will Jiang have any abnormalities in the future?" King Heng looked troubled and answered softly, "The matter of the young master is beyond me. Judging by his appearance, I fear it does not bode well. We must observe him closely over the coming years." Li Jiangao's mouthful of fangs and greedy gaze still lingered in Li Ziming's mind. He figured King Heng's "does not bode well" was likely an understatement and said, "Will this child of Lady An be like Jiangao as well? I cannot say for certain." Heng replied, "Fate and bloodline are influenced by spiritual energy, spiritual aura, time of birth, and parentage. Even in Great Wei, Northern Qi, and Great Liang, the Purple Mansion and Golden Core realms cultivators still struggle to fully grasp such things. It is beyond what I can weigh or determine. However," he smiled wryly as he continued, "Bright Yang yields many offspring. There are often children even among Foundation Establishment Realm and Purple Mansion Realm cultivators. Surely there will be one among them who can carry on the great cause." King Heng had made himself clear. Li Ziming nodded and told him to go check on Lady An, then lowered his gaze again. Li Xuanxuan sat uneasily and softly said, "And what should be done with Jiangao?" "Raise him." Li Ziming responded calmly, "Since King Heng can preserve the mother, then let Xiaowei marry a few more. Let him observe closely." Li Xuanxuan could only agree and added, "And regarding Lady Su, keep it quiet for now." Li Ziming was silent for a moment before suddenly saying, "I don't know whether Xiaowei will resist this arrangement. He seems to have some genuine feelings for his concubine, but he knows what's at stake, so he'll follow the plan." Li Xuanxuan glanced at his grandson with a trace of unfamiliarity. His golden robe shimmered brilliantly in the sunlight. With his cultivation now at the late stage of the Foundation Establishment realm, even his features looked somewhat indistinct beneath the glowing light. Li Ziming sipped his tea and said heavily, Though Li Xuanfeng wields a divine bow and is unmatched in archery, he may not be able to protect the family once he falls into the Azure Pond sect's hands. Ant and Zijai are missing in the demonic mists. Washo's life is uncertain, and we don't know how many of those who went north will return. He looked into Li Xuanxuan's aged face and said softly, "The path to Purple Mansion is dim and distant. A bright Yang bloodline appears only once in centuries. We must preserve it, whether it's like a wolf or a tiger. Even if it's nothing like its father, it's still better than mediocrity. If Bright Yang proves too wild, then let Li Jiangao be used. Though he is not human in nature, beasts too know how to mate. With enough generations and offspring, surely one will emerge with human temperament and extraordinary talent." Li Xuanxuan fell into stunned silence. He had not expected those words. Li Ziming had not said anything unreasonable, but to his ears it sounded cold and devoid of emotion. When he took in the radiant bright Yang aura around the young cultivator before him, the old man suddenly realized he was no longer that headstrong child devoted solely to cultivation. Now his cultivation stands at a height where the entire family has to heed him, and yet that same ruthless nature remains. If things continue like this, what place will the family laws and ancestral codes hold? In 100 years, chaos will surely rise, only the bright Yang bloodline flourishing while the other 4 branches are cast aside. What a farce that would be. He paused for a moment, then spoke in a gentle tone. "There's no need to rush. Perhaps a turning point still lies ahead." Li Ziming nodded and asked quietly, "Shall I go north and see what can be done? Offer some aid?" Li Xuanxuan would never agree to that, and he responded tactfully, "It's enough that you care, but you mustn't go north again. I'll head back to refine pills. If anything comes up, simply send for me," said Li Ziming. Li Ziming bowed and left, but his words remained heavy in the old man's chest. Li Xuanxuan brooded deeply. The balance between the 4 bloodlines relies entirely on the close upbringing with the Qingdu bloodline. But if Bright Yang's descendants grow strong, Bright Yang is already domineering, how could they treat mortals as equals? They may well claim sole legitimacy and scorn the other 4 lines. He didn't know whether he'd live to see that day, but Li Xuanxuan had seen too much in his time. As he leaned back in his seat, he pondered, "I must speak with Zijin about this. But I've no idea how his injuries have fared. If not for the treasured panacea, the Earthview Bloodstone, Li Zijin would have perished at the lake that day. He had been in closed-door cultivation for years with no word. The old man had never dared disturb him. When Li Ziming exited the hall and approached his alchemy pavilion, he found several people already waiting outside, and Siwei stood in front, with a middle-aged man that was around 30-something behind him. The man was accompanied by a woman and clutching a small child in his arms. Li Ziming paused, casting a questioning look toward Siwei. The middle-aged man behind him immediately stepped forward and bowed. "Father." "Oh." Li Ziming was momentarily stunned before responding, "Chengjin." The man before him was his eldest son, Li Chengjin. Born without a spiritual orifice, he had been sent down the mountain early in life. Li Ziming spent his days in closed-door cultivation, so years often went by with a single blink. Thus he could no longer recognize his own son. The middle-aged and clearly nervous Li Chengjin quickly brought the child forward. "Father, I know your time is precious. After I was betrothed to my wife, we soon had a son, Zhuming. You were in seclusion, and we didn't dare enter the mountain. Today, the boy has been tested and was found to have a spiritual orifice. I truly didn't dare delay, so I came up the mountain, thick-skinned as it may be." Even with a heart of stone, Li Ziming couldn't move for a moment after hearing that. He pulled the child closer to inspect him, and upon further examination confirmed that the child's innate ability was, indeed, very poor. "Grandfather." The child called out with wide, hopeful eyes. Li Ziming could only take his hand. A bittersweet ache welled in his heart, and unable to face them, he waved a hand to hide his emotions. "Let him stay here for now. You may leave if there's nothing else." The couple thanked him profusely and withdrew. For some reason, Li Ziming suddenly asked, "How have the 2 of them been living?" And Siwei answered quietly, "According to the rules of the family chief, mortals born from the direct descendant may not engage in trade, hold authority, annex land, or inherit property. The young master now makes a living by teaching." Li Ziming instructed someone to take the child away and watched as everything was settled. He noticed the boy had even brought his luggage along in advance. An indescribable feeling stirred within him. He murmured, "Take me to see where they live."